Thanks for being here. This is Truth Seekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truth Seekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers.
All these ancient prophecies telling us that the world will be transformed.
Wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can he steal? It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can he steal? He makes all this stuff up and claims that it's all true. The aliens want to eat us. Be careful that they don't get you. It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can you steal? It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can you steal?
This is where if I have a live audience, I get everybody to hug each other. I say, give your neighbor a handshake or a hug, whatever you feel is appropriate to you. And that way everybody feels the love a little more. I will never believe it, I will never believe it. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you need 25,000 more years, I don't know, buddy. But look, this is really compelling information, and it's going to get a lot more intense. It's coming up in a couple days here on Sunday, so if you haven't already signed up, we have reopened the cart. We still have the payment plan in place.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to Truth Seekers. I want to thank everybody for the incredible weekend we just had. We tried something new, which was to literally broadcast all weekend, and it went pretty well. I'm aware that there was some audio sync issues, and we've tracked down the bug. It had something to do with the difference between 30 frames per second MP4s and 29.97. I don't know what happened. I apologize for those errors. But I was so happy to see people in the live chat for the whole weekend long. What we did learn is that we don't have a morning crowd here. The 9 a.m. 12-hour live streams were significantly less attended than the 9 p.m. ones. So going forward, we'll try to stick with the later shows for you night owls. So, you know, we learned some things. We made a mistake. We made some mistakes, which, you know, mistakes are okay. These things happen. We won't repeat. I've almost never repeated the same mistake. Usually something goes wrong here. We learn from it and we roll on. I always say it's a live show. You get it warts and all. But in the case of those streams, they really shouldn't be those technical issues. So I apologize for that. All right, so we are going to be exploring David Wilcock's latest round of, wow, For those unaware, David Wilcock has been kind of melting down lately because I think he's under an awful lot of stress. He's claimed that he's $1.5 million in debt to the IRS. He recently was in some lawsuits, but I think some of them got settled. One particular lawsuit that was related to the Cory Goode lawsuits, one of those people who was sued countersued Cory Goode and included the Wilcock Spiritual Foundation and also David Wilcock in that suit. But I'm not sure what happened with that. I think it was perhaps settled out of court. But then there's the issue of Statti Enterprises, his shady aerospace company, which is getting sued by not just investors, but also creditors. And David Wilcock, of course, is also recently divorced, claims he's spent 2 years alone in the mountains, in the wilderness, living a monastic life since his wife left him and writing these awful books. So he's under a great deal of pressure and stress, a lot of it financial, apparently. According to David Wilcock, he's given a great deal of money to Statti Aerospace, and he's the only reason they were able to buy that hangar and keep the business going while they wait for additional funding. But the problem is that one of the initial or recent investors into his aerospace company sued the company and called it an investment scam and a Ponzi scheme. Once an investor sues a company and calls it in the court documents an investor scam and a Ponzi scheme, understandably, other investors are a little hesitant to throw their money into this investment. And most investors, I talked to a financial professional who works on the stock exchange in Philadelphia and also does some venture capital investing. He told me that the first thing that you do is do your due diligence on the company, especially if it's a newer company or not very well-known company. And you find out if they've got any lawsuits or, major problems. So certainly anybody that was thinking of investing in David Wilcock's pie in the sky hover car with free energy engine plans would certainly do their due diligence and find that lawsuit in which David Wilcock's company, Statti Aerospace, was called an investment scheme and a Ponzi scheme. We've shown those court documents, but now David Wilcock is melting down. I've never seen him like this. I've commented before, and I got this from somebody that I trust as a source, who told me that David Wilcock's whole strategy with online critics is to just completely ignore them. Don't ever address anything. And he's done that for the past, near as I know, like 10 years that I've been watching and observing his various online antics and, schemes to pretend, in my opinion, he pretends that he has secret information that he's going to share with stupid people. He's never gotten this, I suppose agitated is the correct word. He's never gotten this agitated, and he has never publicly commented on his trolls or his critics or what people are saying about him. And these last couple of weeks, he just has been breaking down. I think that what's getting to him is there used to be a truth seeker, and I'm not going to take the credit for being the first person that did shows very critical of David Wilcock. However, we have provided consistent coverage for years now of his various, I'm just going to call them shady business dealings. And we have done so in the role that I have here. One of them, I wear many hats here running this whole, I'm running a media empire. No, I have a small media company here. And one of the things that we do is investigative journalism. We investigate things. And some of these things go back years and years, some of these shady business dealings. So I want to thank Spooky and also Drew, friends of the show, who had this information. Because tonight, because David Wilcock is essentially, he's saying he's going to sue his online trolls and critics. And the great thing here is that, remember, he's supposed to be a spiritual guru, and he spends all this time talking about psychopaths and how they like to inflict psychological harm on their victims. And meanwhile, he is gleeful, talking about how as soon as he gets the money, he's going to start suing his online critics and his trolls. And by the way, he even mentioned Stephen, but he said from Canada. Many people are saying that he's speaking about me. He may very well be, but as of the time of this broadcast, I have not received any paperwork or legal threats from his lawyers. Just to put that on the record. This is not to say that this won't happen. And I do want to take a moment, just a cautionary tale for people. There was a time when the heat was really heating up against Cory Goode's claims, and there reached sort of a crescendo with Cory Goode, where when he first came out, there was a few people calling bullshit or saying, questioning his stories. But the longer Cory Goode was around telling these, I believe they're fairy tales, the more people started standing up and calling him out and saying that his Buck Rogers science fiction fantasy stories were fake. And I think that's what we're seeing with David Wilcock now, because now there seems to be an awful lot of voices on Twitter, even in his own chat, that are taking him to task. But isn't it interesting? I said cautionary tale. So, a lot of people are very upset because he used the name Stephen, thinking that, he's going to, attack me or do what. Well, first of all, I learned through various things, but my sort of on again, off again battles with alcohol, the serenity prayer. I have to accept the things I can't change. I can't change if David Wilcock is going to go down the same dark, destructive, career-ruining path that Cory Goode went down. After all, remember what happened to Cory Goode when he started suing his critics and his business partners. How did that work out for him? Well, according to recent court documents, Cory Goode is bankrupt and insolvent. His company is insolvent, and he can't afford a lawyer to defend him in the California copyright case that he's being sued in California for copyright infringement. Mr. IP, isn't that great? So Cory Goode went down this road that David Wilcock apparently wants to tread down. And I would just strongly caution David Wilcock. First of all, there's some things that people should know. There's two lawyers, Miss Unaris and Miss Liz Lurie, that have at various times been attack dogs for David Wilcock and or mostly Cory Goode. Sending people threatening letters, threatening to sue them and telling them to cease and desist. Another content creator I used to be friendly with called these angry lawyer letters. And by the way, I got one, which we're sharing for the first time publicly. In the description of the video, there is documents, which we'll be sharing tonight. So those two individuals, Miss Unaris and Liz Lurie, in my opinion, are Kool-Aid drinking cult members of both. Well, let's not even call them Kool-Aid drinking cult members. I have to be very careful because they're both lawyers. Both of those individuals are very close to Cory Goode and David Wilcock, and I believe they are believers of their claims. And they also happen to be lawyers. So the people that I think David Wilcock may be getting legal advice from are sort of followers of his, which is really, really not a good idea, David Wilcock. It's not a good idea to have somebody that's a fan of yours give you legal advice. So my first advice to David Wilcock would be to find an independent lawyer that doesn't know your whole history or isn't a big fan of yours, and you tell that lawyer who you want to sue and why, and get real legal advice, because I don't even know what David Wilcock is going to sue for. He said something about torturous interference, and that's basically interfering in somebody's business. So what is David Wilcock saying? Is he saying that I can't share court documents that show that one of the investors in Statti is calling it an investment scam and a Ponzi scheme in court documents, because that would be considered factual reporting. That's not, I'm sorry if it embarrasses him. And by the way, the purpose of my broadcast is not to humiliate, denigrate, or embarrass or damage anybody's business. So that falls apart. He can't really sue somebody like me for torturous interference if what we are showing, including the evidence, because we've shared it all, is actually factual information. So I guess that leaves defamation and slander, but there's some real problems. Ask any lawyer how hard it is to bring a slander or defamation lawsuit, especially because David Wilcock is indeed a public figure, as he's so fond of pointing out. So in a defamation lawsuit or slander lawsuit, a plaintiff, that would be David Wilcock if you start suing all his critics, who is a public official or public figure, must prove that the person they're suing published a statement with actual malice, a higher level of fault. And they must prove that you knew that what you were saying was factually inaccurate and that you did it with reckless disregard and actual malice, intending them harm. And I'm here to tell you, I don't intend David Wilcock any harm. My motivation for sharing the information that I've shared, and by the way, I believe that we've shared more damaging information about David Wilcock and what I would characterize, and many people I believe would agree with me and characterize as shady business dealings. We've shared more information about that than anybody, I believe. My motivation for doing that is to show people the truth and peel back the layers of deception that David Wilcock uses to create this fake persona that he's got government insiders, that he's got secret information, that he's got sacred information from angels to sell you, that he's got secret information about anti-gravity and free energy to sell you for $333. And remember, we heard, I believe it's Mark is his name, from Falcon Space. He's got an entire laboratory in New Jersey dedicated to anti-gravity research. He called David Wilcock's $333 course in anti-gravity and free energy a scam. So what we're doing here is we may be repeating things, but we're showing people what people are saying. Is David Wilcock saying I'm in the moral, ethical, or legal wrong for doing that? I don't think that is accurate. And also, one other bit of advice, not that I'm here to give Mr. Wilcock legal advice, because after all, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm fairly well versed in some of these things. Wilcock needs to consider what happened to Cory Goode, who had to sit and do a deposition one time. One time he had to do a deposition. And in that did not go well for Cory Goode. Does anybody remember? Cory Goode was forced to admit under oath that he'd never been to space, that he made up a lot of the stories that they sold. And that is a legal, it remains. So if David Wilcock were to sue anybody, I suppose that could be brought in as evidence. And that could, in my opinion, that could be used to display that David Wilcock sold completely and totally fake stories from Cory Goode for years and years for money. He got live speaking fees talking about Cory Goode's information for money. He got television show deals with Gaia for money. He sold books talking about some of that stuff, I believe, for money. And there exists a legal, it's a deposition, which is all the proof and evidence that any jury or judge would have to see to know that David Wilcock is involved with people telling fake stories, and he profits from people telling fake stories, in my opinion, and he himself tells fake stories, in my opinion. And that's another thing. People have a constitutional right to express their opinions. And sorry, not sorry, but if somebody's opinion of you, David Wilcock, is that you're a con artist, maybe you need to ask why people hold that perception of you instead of suing them for it. So we're going to get into all of this, but I thought we would begin with, well, let me take a moment here to thank Wise Monkey for kind and generous £4.99. I wish all the wokesters would take all the vegans away in the hidden spaceship so common sense could be restored. Wise Monkey. Yeah, I stepped on a landmine earlier because I posted about the Acolyte, which I thought was horrible, and then people are assuming that I think it's horrible because it's so woke. No, that's not it. It was just horrible. I've seen fan films on YouTube that were better done. That Darth Maul one, that was better done than the Acolyte. So I don't know how they spent 180 million on that. I don't know, Wise Monkey. But thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support, and of course for helping us to praise the cash. Wise Monkey, longtime show supporter. Thank you for your help. We appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
So, I have some notes here, and I want to be sure to hit all the points that I just want to express. Another thing, I said I wanted to give you a cautionary tale. A lot of people are saying, like, a lot of people are saying very disparaging things to me about Wilcock and saying, like, if he attacks you and this and that. But what people need to realize is that Cory Goode destroyed people's lives for years with just the same kind of lawsuits that David Wilcock is essentially talking about bringing against critics and trolls. And by the way, I don't consider myself a troll. I consider myself an investigative journalist. And also, by the way, this will be the first time that I am announcing this, and it's big news. I will be, sorry, still getting over strep throat. I will be doing investigative journalism pieces in a Washington, D.C. based newspaper. I got real press credentials and everything. So this, of course, would add to the argument that I am a journalist. And one of the first stories that I'm writing for that Washington, D.C. based newspaper is about David Wilcock and his various business endeavors, let's just call them. So I don't understand, like a lot of people think that Mr. Wilcock is specifically referring to me. If he is, this would be just a fruitless endeavor for him because, first of all, he can't sue me. He would have to sue my company. I have a company, a media company, and everything that we produce here is clearly marked, produced by that company. So he'd have to go after my company, and he'd have to do so in my home state. And then number two, the company's not doing great. So, I mean, what are you going to get? You can't go after me personally. You have to go after the company that produced the content that you're claiming, whatever you're claiming about. And so, I think there's a few $100s in that company's checking account. You're welcome to it. And also, I want to put on the record, I'm going to give Mr. Wilcock an opportunity. We have at various times printed sort of retractions or offered an apology. Actually, just one time in the whole history of our show did I have to pull videos down because of a factually inaccurate statement. But I'm offering Wilcock, before he goes to the expense and the nightmare that the legal system will become, before he does that, I'll offer him an opportunity. Anything that I said that he finds fault with or thinks is factually inaccurate, he can give me a timestamp and I will evaluate that statement. And if it is a factually inaccurate statement, I will apologize and offer to take it down or cut it out of the broadcast if it's factually inaccurate. But in the whole history of our show, we've only had to do that one time. And, I pride myself on having facts in hand before putting mouth in gear. So the other thing I think that Mr. Wilcock should be aware of is, should he choose to sue somebody that was smart, I consider myself kind of smart when it comes to running a media company, that individual or company could subpoena all kinds of things from David Wilcock: phone calls, text messages, emails, financial records, and then those things would all become public. So if a lot of people have given me a a lot of compliments about our investigations into David Wilcock's various business endeavors. And remember that I've done so as just with no power, just, with the telephone and the internet and interviewing people and asking a lot of questions. Imagine what I could uncover if somebody were stupid enough to give me subpoena power. And also, it bears the thought that should I enter it, should I be one of those targets of Mr. Wilcock, then I would have the right, or my attorney would have the right to take a deposition from Mr. Wilcock for 8 or more hours. I think it's 8 or 10 hours. Imagine David Wilcock having to answer 8 hours worth of questions for me, having no choice but to answer 8 hours worth of questions that I generated and worked with an attorney to have him asked for 8 hours straight. So I really don't understand what the argument is. Essentially, David Wilcock is complaining that people are calling him a con artist. So we're going to do things a little differently tonight. I'm going to present some evidence, and then we're going to put a poll up in the live chat asking the question, do you believe that David Wilcock is a con artist based on the evidence I have presented? And so, it's really not about what I think. It's about presenting evidence and letting people make up their own minds, just as a jury or a judge would have to make up their mind in some kind of wacky legal case. But before we get into that, I think we should put our fair use banner up, and we should begin to go over some of the highlights of Mr. Wilcock melting down and claiming that he's going to be suing his critics and his trolls. And the other thing I would like to say is that David Wilcock is apparently trying to have things both ways, like saying what I'm doing here is creating art. This is art. And I'm just here to tell you that it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. Lying to people is not art, and it never will be. Claiming that you're talking to angels is not art. It's bullshit. And I'm allowed to think that, and so is anybody else who does not believe David Wilcock. See how that worked out for Cory Goode, trying to say that what he does is his intellectual property, right? You can't have it both ways. Wilcock claims to be telling his followers about real-world events, and he has true and real information about what's really happening on Earth and out in space and all these other things. You can't just say that's art to get yourself off the hook for lying to people. You claim it's true and accurate information, just as you claim that your $333 courses contain true and accurate information. I don't know. So we're going to put our fair use banner up. And I want to thank, besides Spooky, who claims Spooky is sponsoring tonight's broadcast. Spooky shared some information. Macario Mend on Twitter as well, at Macario Mend, was kind enough to share a whole bunch of David Wilcock clips from this latest stream. I was driving home on Sunday from the cabin, and my phone was just blowing up with people sending me clips of David Wilcock saying all kinds of stuff, which is really kind of funny. So let me put my fair use banner up. It gets pretty good too. In this stream, David Wilcock claims that he's getting a $10 million loan, but he's going to have to pay back $15 million. What kind of loan company charges you 50% interest? I mean, I don't know. Let me put my fair use banner up first. I'm still struggling with these, finding these clips as well. I thought they were pretty handy, but we'll get the fair use banner up. And by the way, David Wilcock is also still falsely copyright claiming anybody using any of his material, claiming that Cory Goode, it's some kind of copyrighted work about Antarctica from Cory Goode with Cory Goode, and that's not the case. So he could lose his whole YouTube channel for filing these false claims. I think. I don't know. I just don't get it. And of course, David Wilcock is claiming that his online trolls are essentially CIA, assets that are trying to destroy him. It's just, I'm still having trouble finding these clips. 1 second, friends. All right, we'll start with the loan, because this is just a ridiculous statement. Remember, David Wilcock claimed that when he gets the money, he's going to sue all of his trolls and critics. And here he's talking about getting a $10 million loan for Statti. And by the way, I also want to put something else on record. I hope David Wilcock gets funding, because apparently his excuse for never creating the hover cars with the free energy engines that he promised, his excuse for why he hasn't done that is because they haven't gotten funded. I want to see him get the funding, because then I want to know what his next excuse when he can't produce. He won't be able to produce, in my opinion, he will not be able to produce hover cars and free energy with unlimited money. Okay? With anti-gravity and free energy. That's my opinion. And I'm entitled to it because I happen to be very educated on the history of people scamming people for both anti-gravity devices and free energy devices. See our deep dive on that. Yeah. All right, let's hear this.
Individuals try to come after us online. There is one individual in particular who I plan on suing immediately, and he knows who he is. He's in Canada, and his name is Stephen. Yes, Stephen, we are going to sue you. So get ready.
And this is the clip that everybody says where he's referring to me. But just to be clear, I don't know that he's referring to me. I don't live in Canada, never have. And I have not received any notice of lawsuits or anything like that. But yeah, here he's basically referring to somebody. I'm hopeful it's not me.
Ready. It's going to happen. If you come after us that much, if you do tortious interference with business, aggravated harassment, we are going to come after you.
Apparently, it's torturous interference to show people court documents that prove that investors are suing you, that prove, or suing your company, I should say, and also prove that your creditors, vendors that did work on your facility, are also suing Statti. Is that torturous interference to show people true and accurate court documents with the sources to prove that that is accurate information? I don't know. I'm kind of puzzled because a lot of people are convinced he's talking about me here. I don't know if he is, but I'm going through over things in my head, like what have we shared here? And one of the other things I've shared is my opinion. I'm allowed to think that somebody that lies to people, in my opinion, and claims to be in communication with angels is not, based on biblical principles. I'm allowed to express my opinion. I have a constitutional right to free speech. Wilcock is saying he's going to sue people for torturous interference with his business and aggravated, what did he call it? Aggravated assault or aggravated harassment? I don't even know what that is. The purpose of my broadcast is certainly not to harass anybody. It's to share evidence and get to the truth behind people making strange claims on the internet. Let's continue this. See what else he has to say in this clip.
So it's never going to be public, but it is going to happen. I promise you. So yeah, have fun with that, buddy. You're going to be in a whole different game once that starts.
I just want to put on the record that if he is speaking about me, we would be in a whole different game. There's a great many things that I've never made public that I found through the course of some of my investigations. And should I have to defend myself in a legal arena, I'll use everything that I have. I will make it all public. So we would be in a different arena. And then I would be able to deposition Mr. Wilcock for 8 hours, asking questions that he's forced to answer. He has to answer for 8 hours. I will get subpoena rights, which will mean I can subpoena whatever I want, as long as it's relevant to the case. And certainly things like email messages, phone texts, phone records, financial records. I can subpoena the receipts for all of his purchases for the Wilcock Spiritual Foundation, which we'll get into in a little while. I could subpoena the records for Convergence Pictures LLC and find out exactly how much money he collected and what he did with the money. I could subpoena all the email communications between him and Pete Peterson, and between him and Cory Goode, and between him and who's the other idiot? Sorry, didn't mean to call him an idiot. I apologize. Between him and Emery Smith in regard to that PayPal donation thing. Yeah, so it would change things tremendously. And I don't think that he quite realizes the gift that may be to me. But I certainly don't welcome it. As I said, I am more than happy to come up with a reasonable compromise. Like I said, he can tell me what he thinks I've ever said that was factually inaccurate, and I will address those things. Or he can go down this dark and dangerous path that Cory Goode went down. But I have to say that Cory Goode's cases were mired in COVID and a bunch of other stuff, and they never really got to court, really. So if a case like Wilcock claims he's going to be bringing is unencumbered by those things, it might move quicker than you'd imagine. And I was sort of surprised that the people that Cory Goode sued were not very aggressive in their defenses. That's just my opinion, but I tell you, I would be. But again, I don't welcome that. And another part of this cautionary tale is that, people are like, oh, let him, Stephen, we'll support you. No, you won't. No, I listen, I appreciate people saying that. But when I end up with, if I end up with tens of thousands of dollars worth of legal debts, nobody's going to pay those for me. I guarantee it. I will be left holding that bag myself. So while I appreciate, the sentiment people are offering, because remember, one of the people who Cory Goode sued, one of his online critics, had something like $35,000 worth of legal debts, and the case never even made it to a courtroom. So imagine how expensive a frivolous lawsuit is. That's the problem with frivolous lawsuits. Anybody can bring a frivolous lawsuit and claim that you damaged them in some way. The challenge for Wilcock is going to be that, first of all, he has to prove that anybody that he sues said something that they knew was not factual. Opinions don't have to be factual. I can offer my opinion on anything. It doesn't have to be factual. And again, with public figures, like, I could say, and I don't really truly believe this. I don't know the whole story on her, but like I could say, in my opinion, Amber Heard is a dirtball and a scumbag, and nobody should ever hire her for a movie ever again. That's my opinion. So, if I've been hyperbolic or if I've said things that offended him and they were my opinion, he can't claim that opinion is slander or defamation or torturous interference or anything like that. It's kind of ridiculous.
It'll last a long time. It's not going to be fun. We do take trolls very seriously. If you are trying to hurt me or you're trying to hurt my business, there is going to be consequences as soon as we can afford to make those consequences, which will probably be Thursday.
Yeah. So for months now, he's been saying he's getting a big chunk of money any minute now for Statti. And listen, let's just stop here for a moment. And I know we're going to go at a lot slower pace than we usually do with these shows, but I can't apologize for that because there's things here that are important to discuss. Mr. Wilcock claims to be a spiritual guru with secret information and sacred information from angelic sources. And here he is saying, as soon as I get money, I'm going to hurt these people that are trying to hurt my business. And again, I just want to put on the record, it's never my intention to hurt anybody's business. But if telling people the truth about what's going on with that business, like they're being sued by their investors, they're being sued by creditors, there's liens that people are seeking to get put on that building, those are all factually accurate statements. And if factually accurate statements damage your business, then maybe you ought to change your business practices, not sue people that are correctly reporting on what's really going on behind the scenes there, Mr. Wilcock. Oh, and another thing, this is a long shot, of course, but I also want to just say that the door is always open here. And Mr. Wilcock can come on my show here and we'll have a respectful conversation. I won't raise my voice or call him a scumbag or anything. And we can go over point by point anything that I've ever reported here that he found a fault with, or he can come here and defend himself against anything we've ever reported, or he can come here and dispute that what I've presented throughout my coverage of him has been or not been factually accurate. The door is open. So he's free to come and have a voice here, just as everybody is free to come and have a voice in our live chat. He's free to come on the show. And again, if I ever said anything that was factually inaccurate, then I apologize. But I think this is a very dangerous road that Mr. Wilcock is now treading on. Let's hear the last bit of this and we'll go to the next one.
There is going to be consequences as soon as we can afford to make those consequences, which will probably be Thursday. So like I said, we're going to have a new loan to individuals.
He's going to have a new loan. And the loan is apparently for $10,000. And of course, I just want to play this one. The other issue that Mr. Wilcock is going to have if he tries to involve me in any legal disputes is that we do a lot of comedic parodies here. And people send me funny clips and we play them. And if somebody's a public figure and somebody does a comedic parody of them, and by the way, this is the one thing that I'm not happy about is this is going to make me sort of walk on eggshells. You know, you got to dot all your I's and cross all your T's and all that stuff. So this clip right here is fair use. It's a comedic parody. So one of the things that we do here is do a lot of comedic parodies about various public personalities. It's almost impossible to win a defamation or slander lawsuit against somebody that is doing a comedic parody about you. And this is one of the clips that somebody sent me.
Now, there are certain trolls who try to say I'm a con artist or I'm a thief. That is true. Now, there are certain trolls who try to say I'm a con artist or I'm a thief.
That is true.
That is true. Now, there are certain trolls who try to say I'm a con artist or I'm a thief. That is true. Now, there are certain trolls who...
He says that is true. And of course, this is a comedic parody. He said that is not true. Somebody edited it. It's funny. We're allowed to laugh. We're allowed to laugh, Mr. Wilcock, especially when you're claiming that archangels are telling you to take baths in your own piss in order to get superpowers. You know, I don't think he realizes like everything he's ever said can be entered into one of these lawsuits if he files against somebody. And he's going to have to sit there in front of a judge and a jury or whatever and explain, yeah, I did say that the Archangel Michael told me to take baths in my own piss and that gave me superpowers. You know, it's just like Cory Goode. Cory Goode had to sit there and explain his space adventures. And it failed miserably and dramatically. And the thing is, David Wilcock has a decades-long war history of saying wacky things on the internet and making false claims and spreading disinformation and misinformation for money. So this is going to be extremely, extremely problematic if he should choose to go down this course. And I wanted to take a moment to remind everybody, speaking of comedic parody, remember what happened when Cory Goode sued his critics. It did not go well for him. And I was reminded of a funny comedic parody sent to me by our friend Ken and me. And I'm going to play this because sometimes you just have to laugh. And David Wilcock and Cory Goode, we're allowed to laugh. We're allowed to laugh at people making absolutely ridiculous claims on the internet for money. And that's essentially what both these guys do. So, you know, I just don't understand Wilcock. Is he going to, first of all, he's supposed to be Mr. Love and Light. Shouldn't he just forgive me? Right? Shouldn't you just forgive me? You're in contact with the Archangel Michael. And isn't that another thing? When the Archangel Michael tell him, don't go for revenge, David Wilcock, be the bigger man. Forgive your enemies. Right? I would think so. And then the other thing is, he's fostered this be more of service to self than service to others, or be more of service to others than service to self. Is it more of service to others to sue your online trolls and critics, or service to you? So he's going against his very own teachings. And by the way, his live chat is calling him out, and the comments on his videos, his followers are saying, you can't go for revenge, David. It's against the law of one. You can't do that, Mr. Wilcock. Or you shouldn't do that, and people are kind of making fun of it. That's like tonight's title: Love Light and Lawsuit Threats. But we're gonna take a moment to chuckle at what happened when Cory Goode was subjected to a deposition, and just imagine what the deposition of David Wilcock will be. And by the way, David Wilcock is already facing a deposition in the Gaia lawsuit. He's going to have to give a deposition to Gaia TV. But I guarantee you that those questions will probably be centered around defamation and slander of Gaia. They're not going to concentrate on his wacky claims like angels telling him to take baths and piss. If I get a shot, mine will. But anyway, I want to thank Ken and me. And let's just take a comedic look back at how depositions go for these Cosmic Con swindlers.
The name is Goode, Cory Goode, with a E at the end, trademark. Yes, accolades include being trained under the secret scam program, and some of our products include Below Majestic, Delusions of Disclosure, Cosmic Scam, and I was recruited by Lilab. And my courses, well, they're very, very, yes, that's right. I am the Earth Ambassador. Above average intelligence? Check that. It's good to be ambassador. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that. I will get back to you. I don't know. What's going on? I don't know. I don't remember. Lawsuits? Just this one. And, well, the other two. That's definitely it. Just this one and the other. Oh, and then there's the other 3 lawsuits. Well, that's it. The 3, the 2, the 1. Well, yeah, that one as well. That one, yes, that one too. Okay, so 15 lawsuits. I mean, come on. I'm just an average guy. Well, not really. Earth Ambassador. Did the recruitment to Lilab actually happen? Well, my elementary school took a field trip to the airport. We got the little bag of peanuts and the plastic wings. Well, I was actually a janitor, custodial engineer, as it were, at Area 51. Yes, I have downloaded memories of multiple lifetimes, but no, I can't remember that detail about the financial record. Superpowers? I got a whole lot of them. My courses, okay, look, for one of them, I don't know, I paid some homeless guy a 6-pack and a pack of cigarettes. Another one, I used a random word generator. You know what I mean? Just throw in a bunch of sci-fi terms, a bunch of new age terms, hit click on go, bada bang. Superpowers, of course I have them. I'll give you a demonstration right now. Now watch this. This is a solid object, everyone could agree, right? Solid object. Oh, I'm bending solid matter. Solid matter is bending to my will, my very will. Well, my higher self spiritual guides are the anchovies. That's correct, the anchovies. They are the highest beings in existence anywhere. But, well, yeah, I mean, I made them up. I created them. So, I mean, well, wait a minute. Think, wow. They are my creation, but they are my spiritual guide. So I am my own spiritual guide. I am my own guru. Well, yes, as one of the most spiritually advanced, enlightened beings on the planet, in the galaxy, in the universe today, I did cheat on my wife. Yes, I committed adultery. Yes. But it was over. It was over instantly. I mean, it was a relationship ended instantly. Why? It just did. Look, I mean, come on. Who wants to get into the details, right? Why? I mean, it just ended instantly. It was instantly over because why? Look, what the why is? Okay, look. Because I'm a two-pump chump, all right? So there you go. I said it. Thank the anchovies that even though I was told that this is recorded and live streamed, the general public will never hear a word of it. Woof. Oh, look. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, you know, guys like Tom the Schlong, Dave Derriere, you know, the usual crowd. Well, no, the anchovies are really not real, sort of quasi-dimensionally hyper quantum. So, quantumly entangled, multi-hyper, quasi, I don't like this one. Why do I keep doing this while we're talking? It's, hold on a second here. I'm just trying to wake up my lawyer. Come on. Okay, yes, well, let's take a bathroom break. Oof, what just happened there? Well, I was pulled out of my body. I was traveled back in time to Sherwood Forest, hung out with Robin Hood for a decade. I used the potty in Sherwood Forest, so that took care of that. And then I was traveled to another dimension in another universe, another galaxy that it's exactly like this one, except this nail is a little longer. And I fought space battles for 2 decades, and then I was regressed back into my body. Yeah, that's how I go. But the bathroom actually, yeah, I do have to use it here. Could out!
So there's a look at a comedic look at Cory Goode's deposition. I think David Wilcock's would be even more endlessly entertaining. So we're going to do what I said at the beginning of the broadcasts now. I'm going to put a poll up asking a question to the public. And that question is very simple. David Wilcock is apparently very upset because people apparently, or allegedly, are calling him a con artist. So I'm going to ask a very simple question. Is David Wilcock a con artist? And we're going to start that poll. I will pin it in the live chat. Oh, it's already at the top. So everybody's free to chime in, but you may want to wait until we present some of the evidence that I believe people may be basing that belief about David Wilcock on. All right, 1 second here. And this is a PDF where Spooky compiled previous evidence that we had gathered for another show. We have approached this many times. Okay, so we'll begin with Pete Peterson. Pete Peterson was one of David Wilcock's supposed government insiders. Pete Peterson claimed to be an early computer pioneer who beat Apple, Commodore, Tandy, Atari, and much more to market. with the first alphanumeric personal computer to market, bought by all major universities and major businesses. Now, I happen to know when I heard that this was one of Pete Peterson's claims that that was completely and totally false. And the reason that I happen to know that is because I've spent a lifetime interested in computer science. That's my entire background. That's what I went to college for. That's what I grew up doing. I ran a BBS in my house. I was into 8-bit computers, then moved to 16, then 32, now 64. I was there when the first personal computers were being sold. And I knew that I had never heard of Pete Peterson, and I had never heard of his computer. So I was fairly certain that Pete Peterson was lying about this, but we wanted to be completely and totally sure. I don't like people who do research by proclamation or just from their own experience. So what we did is we called 10 vintage computer museums. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's computer museums all around the world. And they have various examples of early personal computers. So we call 10 vintage computer museums or communicate with them all around the world, and not one of them ever heard of Pete Peterson, his company, or his personal computer. And then there's additional evidence because we talked to a verified real early computer pioneer. He's famous, Dave Haney. All nerds know Dave Haney of Commodore and Amiga fame. He never heard of Pete Peterson. We got an on-the-record statement from him that he'd never heard of Pete Peterson, his company, or his computer. Given that he was an early computer pioneer, doesn't it make sense that Dave Haney would hear of this other early computer pioneer? And remember that years later, David Wilcock would claim that Pete Peterson didn't know how to get on the internet. So explain that, make this make sense to me. But Dave Haney also said this was a great tip, that I could search magazine articles and newspapers for history supporting his claims. We did that. There is nothing. There is no single mention of Pete Peterson or his computer company, which, by the way, was called Cyberdyne Systems, from the Terminator. Wilcock would later claim that they stole that name from him for the movie Terminator. It's completely and totally ridiculous. Pete Peterson lied about his entire background, and David Wilcock profited from selling stories from a completely and totally fake early computer pioneer. Here's another claim. There's a claim that Pete Peterson invented a revolutionary central processor that had 40 cores and was 50 times faster than any available CPU. And the claim in Wilcock has made is that it was faster than anything Motorola or Apple or Intel or IBM or anybody else had. We searched for that. There's no evidence of this fictional CPU ever mentioned in any magazine or website that covers technology or computers anywhere. Likely another fake claim. If he beat Intel and AMD and Apple with a CPU like that, he would be a billionaire. But instead, Pete Peterson died penniless and broke in an old folks' home. And here we see that Pete Peterson used these fake credentials as an early computer pioneer to join a company as their, director of advanced technology or something like that. This was what is commonly referred to in the stock game, a pump and dump scam. So we know that Pete Peterson actively lied to investors in this Media G3 pump and dump scam. Media G3 welcomes Dr. Pete Peterson. By the way, he was not a doctor. His entire education was completely and totally fake. So, and by the way, while I'm going through this, I want David Wilcock, who I'm sure listens to our show, to ask himself this question. If people think you're a con artist, could some of these things be the reason why? After all, David Wilcock presented Pete Peterson as a government insider who worked for Ronald Reagan in a science and technology role. No, he didn't. And why did I have to tell people about Pete Peterson lying about his education, lying about being an early computer pioneer, participating in pump and dump stock scams? Why did I have to tell the public that? Why didn't David Wilcock do his due diligence and do his research and correctly report that? No, instead, David Wilcock just bought it hook, line, and sinker. Everything Pete Peterson said was true. Additionally, Pete Peterson claims to have degrees in electronics, philosophy, and physics from Golden State University, now known as Stanford University. There is no record of him at Stanford at all. Pete Peterson's educational claims are completely and totally fake, and anybody that referred to Pete Peterson as a doctor got snookered because he was not a doctor. Near as I could tell, he never even went to college. No record of his claimed educational credentials. None. Then there was the Pete Peterson GoFundMe scam. Wilcock likes to say, essentially, oh, people say I stole the money from Pete Peterson. Nobody ever said, to my knowledge, that David Wilcock stole any money from this GoFundMe. What everybody said was that Pete Peterson lied, or whoever posted this this GoFundMe, the entire text body was lies. You can't start a GoFundMe and collect $55,000 and be lying in the text body of the GoFundMe. But that's exactly what first of all, he's not a whistleblower. He never worked for the government. So right there, this is a lie. And here's a quote from that GoFundMe. All right. Pete comes from a long line of inventors. There's no record of him having invented anything, no patents, nothing, including his grandfather, who was Tesla's right-hand engineer at the Colorado laboratory. By the way, we checked in with some experts in Nikola Tesla history. No mention of Pete Peterson's father. I believe we even checked under his mother's maiden name. He was known as Mr. Do by President Ronald Reagan. He never worked for Ronald Reagan, and we did an exhaustive search of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. For those unaware, if somebody works for a president, there'd be some mention of meetings and things like that with that person that worked for that president in their presidential library. There is none, not a single record of Pete Peterson ever having met with or met even Ronald Reagan. There is another Pete Peterson that worked for Ronald Reagan. And by the way, this man's name was not Pete. It was Gary. Some people believe that he intentionally changed his name to Pete so he could claim he worked for Ronald Reagan. And if somebody did a quick Google search, you might believe him. This individual never worked for Ronald Reagan. Full stop. This goes on to say he is one of the top scientists. He has no educational credentials. He's not a scientist. Technology problem solvers, and is widely considered as the single most valuable and prolific inventor whose inventions remain highly classified. Bullshit. I think the classified thing is an excuse for why David Wilcock can't show us a single one of his inventions, right? Yeah, and then there's Pete Peterson on the Jimmy Church Show. All the things Pete Peterson owns, which are in the millions of dollars, I was set to inherit that stuff. It would have kept me financially solvent for the rest of my life. That turned out to be completely and totally false information. And in fact, people talked to the people from the bank who was cleaning out that home. It was being foreclosed on, and it was filled with bottles of piss and dead cats. Yeah, so there's that. And courtesy of Spooky, we actually have the audio clip, which, by the way, is impossible to find now, or nearly impossible. 1 second here. Let me see if I can't pull that up, and we'll share that as well. Jimmy Church, by the way, pulled that episode down after we covered that what David Wilcock was promoting on that Jimmy Church show was indeed a scam. And I stand by that. So, if David Wilcock wants to sue me or anybody else for saying that he was involved in a scam with Pete Peterson, you're going to have to prove it wasn't. And just the text body alone proves that it was not accurate. The text body of the GoFundMe was filled with lies. And here we have him on Fade to Black. And by the way, Jimmy Church knew that he screwed up. He took this episode down. Why did he do that? I believe he did that because he knew that GoFundMe was based on lies. They lied to the public in order to garner sympathy and collect money. And for those unaware, the GoFundMe was supposed to help him get his house back. And the deep state and the government were attacking him and trying to take it. But the truth was, years prior to the GoFundMe, the house was foreclosed on. Eventually, the bank got tired of them leaving their crap in the home and sent somebody to clean the property out so that it could be auctioned and sold. But at the time that the GoFundMe was put up, the house was already foreclosed on. No amount of money would have saved that home. And David Wilcock is here on a public radio show or podcast, whatever, claiming all of these things that turn out to be completely and totally factually inaccurate. There were no police. Nobody forced their way in. There were no dumpsters. And by the way, we had on the record sources that went there, no dumpsters. It was a run-of-the-mill bank foreclosure clean-out. But David Wilcock and Pete Peterson used it as an opportunity, apparently or allegedly, to collect $55,000 from the UFO community because he's a whistleblower, a government whistleblower, and he's under deep state attack. Two problems. He never worked for the government that Wilcock can claim. He wasn't a whistleblower, as Wilcock claimed. And the home was already foreclosed on. It wasn't a deep state attack. And by the way, Pete Peterson had no legal rights to that property. It belonged to his girlfriend, not him. His name wasn't even on the deed, near as I can recall. But let's go over this. And remember, if you're just joining us, we're running a poll. David Wilcock is very upset that people are claiming he's a con artist. So we're doing sort of a review of the various shady business dealings that he's been involved in.
Well, before the break, Jimmy, we left on why Cory Goode. What difference does it make and you got to look at this.
By the way, this is fair use. This is a transformative work. And remember, one of the things that people also believe that Cory Goode is a con man for, and I've talked to several of these people believe that Cory Goode people believe that David Wilcock is a con artist because he sold the now provably fake stories of Cory Goode for years. By the way, this is fair use. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public and we're critiquing the videos we're sharing. This is covered under fair use and is allowable by law. We will vigorously defend any false copyright claims coming from anyone. And we win every single one of them. So if you want to file a false copyright claim, just know that when I appeal it, and I will, and when I win, and I will, the strike will revert to your channel. So let's continue. And it's fun to see Wilcock claiming that Cory Goode's information is so true and accurate here. And what's his reasoning for that? Well, we're under attack because his evidence is so real. That's not evidence because his stories are so real. That's not evidence his stories were real. And in fact, years after this and these stupid claims made by David Wilcock, Cory Goode would sit in a public deposition and admit that his stories were fake, essentially. So let's listen to David Wilcock try to sell the Cory Goode narrative. So again, if people's perception of David Wilcock is that he's a con artist, it's because he's involved in all these shady things, including selling the stories of completely and totally fake government whistleblowers who aren't real government whistleblowers. In some cases, never worked for the government, as in the case of Pete Peterson. But here he explains this deep state attack going on with Pete Peterson that we know is completely and totally fictitious. It's made up.
If his information
First, he's talking about Cory Goode.
is all fraudulent, as these attacks are purporting that they would be, then why would somebody go to the effort of hacking my website? Why?
He's never shown evidence that his website was hacked. This is just a claim.
Why would somebody go to the effort of reporting Cory to Child Protective Services?
Nobody's ever shown any proof that Cory was reported to Child Protective Services. And in fact, David Wilcock's own story here disproves that, because David Wilcock claims that Child Protective Services were called, that the children were in imminent danger because their father was a cult leader, and Child Protective Services just called Cory Goode. Could you imagine? Like, hey, we got some concerning calls about your children. Are you running a UFO call on the internet? No? Okay. Are the kids okay? Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Child Protective Services doesn't operate like that. There would be an entire investigation. There'd be mountains of paperwork. And by the way, I looked for it, David Wilcock. Couldn't find any paperwork to support that false statement.
As a cult leader and saying that his children are in imminent danger, quote unquote.
That he's a cult leader. He got turned in, Sphere Being Alliance got turned into an NGO agency that deals with cults, and now you have that brunt of that investigation. Now we're crossing lines here
And
these are all claims. And remember, recently, the UFO circle jerks, the UAP people, were all claiming that they were under threat and attack. This is a tactic used by these people to proclaim our information is so important, so dangerous that we're under deep state attack. And everybody makes these claims, but nobody ever proves it. Like I said, if somebody calls Child Protective Services, there is an entire investigation. There'd be mountains of paperwork. I checked in Texas. I checked in Colorado. No CPS records relating to Mr. Goode. Now, I could be in error. Maybe I'm just a terrible researcher. Cory Goode or David Wilcock are free to provide me with the paperwork. And if so, I'll apologize and say, okay, well, that one was true. But so far, nope.
Somebody called the Texas local Child Protective Service, and he gets a call on Saturday, the day after my brakes go out on my car, which certainly could be attempted murder.
Yeah, the brakes went out on David Wilcock's car, and he claimed somebody was attempting to murder him. Of course, there's been various retellings of this story, and in one version, it was his wife driving the car when the brakes went out, and in another version, it was him driving the car when the brakes went out.
It was right after the car went down the mountain, and then, as of yesterday, I get this call from Pete Peterson saying that there are armed police.
By the way, so just to hammer home this point, David Wilcock is claiming that somebody called Child Protective Services on Cory Goode and said that the children were in imminent danger because he's running a cult. And Child Protective Services just called Cory Goode and nothing else happened. That's not the way Child Protective Services works. There would be an entire investigation. There'd be mountains of paperwork. Guess what? I didn't find, David Wilcock, any paperwork whatsoever to support that statement. Now, it may very well be that Cory Goode just told him that and he believed it, but there's no evidence of that. Now he's going to go on and tell this Pete Peterson complete and total lie. And by the way, let's be clear. David Wilcock is on a very influential, very popular paranormal radio show here. Jimmy Church, at least he used to be before, getting caught selling all these scammy guys so much. But that's a story for another time. So he's on a radio show that is very popular, and he is promoting complete and total falsehoods in order to get people to donate to this GoFundMe. This is very shady, and maybe another reason why people believe or have the perception that Mr. Wilcock may indeed be a con artist.
Surrounding his house, and they're taking everything he owns and throwing it into dumpsters. And when one of the neighbors came up and said, "What are you guys doing?" one of the cops told him that they've already got the hole dug in the dump. They've already dug it out with bulldozers.
There was no hole in the dump.
When they get this stuff, they're going to throw it in
bulldozers.
there, drive over it with bulldozers, and then fill it in.
There was no bulldozers at the scene or anywhere else. This is a complete and totally false statement.
And Pete Peterson, only 2 weeks ago, there was two rounds of episodes of him on Cosmic Disclosure where he's revealing information that totally validates everything Cory's been saying.
Okay, so we have the wackadoo proven maneuver. A guy with a fake education, fake claims of working for Ronald Reagan, fake claims of being an early computer pioneer. He also lied and said he worked for the Russian equivalent of NASA. No, he didn't. He also lied and said he won the Russian Order of Lenin Award. No, he didn't. He's saying that Cory Goode's information is accurate. Wilcock earlier said Cory Goode's information is so accurate, we're under deep state attack. And again, through the lens of history, we now know that Cory Goode made up those stories. And here he is selling those stories as if they're completely and totally true, and using one complete and total fake UFO wackadoo so-called government insider that never worked for the government to back up the claims of another evidence-free so-called whistleblower. And of course, this is all about money. So, yeah.
Now I'm pulling it up now. So when I have it ready, I'll let you know. But I have the message that Pete Peterson left you. And if it's okay with you, David, I will actually.
Yeah, you can absolutely play it. It's a 1 minute clip. It's very relevant.
It's filled with
what
lies.
I heard.
David Wilcock did not fact check anything Pete Peterson said. And in fact, he helped him promote what has been described as a GoFundMe scam.
When I called up my voicemail,
Allegedly,
and after I heard this, I saved it, and I called him, and this is when we talked for an hour, and I got the download on what was going on. But I also saved the voicemail, and so today I recorded it so that you guys can hear what it actually sounds like when something this real happens to somebody, and he leaves a voicemail in 60 seconds, tells me what's going on. Now, I paused it when it said his phone number, but otherwise, this is exactly the way it sounded.
Okay, let me pull this up here. It's pretty interesting to listen to. It's about it's pulling up now. Hold on.
Enter your passcode, then press pound. You have no new messages. You have 2 saved voice messages. Main menu. To review your messages, press 1.
Boomers trying to play a voicemail.
Voice. Message received at 6:14 p.m. yesterday from...
Hello, this is Pete Peterson giving you a buzz. Just wanted to let you know that they're planning to take everything out of my house and my trucks and trailers and take them up to the dump and dig a big hole pit in the ground and dump it all in the pit and cover it over.
Yes, and by the way, just to be clear, the house in question was a hoarder nightmare mess, and it was filled with bottles of piss and dead cats.
And that includes the ashes of my wife and my mother and all my radio equipment, all my tools, and all the stuff that I had stored there and so forth. Totally against the law, but fully after committing.
It wasn't totally against the law. It was a run-of-the-mill foreclosure. And in fact, the bank was very patient with Mr. Peterson and his girlfriend, allowing them to keep their crap, the hoarder nightmare mess of stuff in the house. They took several years before, I believe, as memory serves me correct, before they cleaned it out and got the house ready for auction. They lost it in foreclosure. You don't pay your mortgage, the bank takes your home. That's what happened here. Had nothing to do with the deep state, and there was nothing of value in this home.
Committing many crimes by the sheriff and stuff. So anyway, we live in America, USSA.
End of message. To repeat this message, press...
Absolutely incredible. Now, I want the audience to understand all of this is happening rapid fire.
Excuse me, Jimmy Church, by the way, he always says, I always vet things 3 times before I say it on my show. Remember that? Yeah, he didn't vet any of this. He just played the message and let David Wilcock promote these lies. And that's unfortunate. And that's probably why Jimmy Church took this episode down, because he was embarrassed for letting David Wilcock promote what has been described as a GoFundMe scam.
You know, and you have to ask yourself.
Jimmy, after on July 3rd, a guy I thought I could trust called me up, said he's doing a favor for the Rothschilds by threatening me.
Oh, yeah. He's
and that if
threatened.
I didn't dump Cory Goode,
fake threats,
that Cory was going to be brought to the slaughterhouse, and he would hate to see that happen to me, too.
Now, there have been some other internet type rumors that have been flowing around out there. I want to address some of these directly. And again, for the audience, David and I always do the same show that we always do. He has no idea what I'm about to ask him. So here we go. Let's go with this first.
Okay.
There are rumors out there that you are upset with Cory, that you feel that you were taken advantage of, that you are separating yourself from him and his message. Those are being fed out there. Can you address that?
There was a little bit of truth to it for a while. I won't deny that. Cory and I spoke at Conscious Life Expo on the
the bro brothers were having a tiff.
Same stage, and he was jabbing at me a little bit with some jokes that he told, and I thought they were a little bit inappropriate and over the top, and some people in the audience were upset. That's all. Okay? And we got over it. We're real people. We talked it through. So maybe some people heard me talking about that, or they saw how we were kind of... You yourself, Jimmy, had said it's like Eddie Van Halen versus David Lee Roth, you know?
Right.
You got the...
Oh, yeah, these two are just as big as stars as David Lee Roth, and come on. Well, So this is David Wilcock promoting the GoFundMe, what has been described as a GoFundMe scam, on the Jimmy Church Show. This may be, my friends, one of the reasons why some people believe that David Wilcock is a con artist, because that was a scam, Mr. Wilcock. There was no bulldozers. There was no police that entered the home. And Mr. Pete Peterson is not now, nor was he ever, a UFO whistleblower or a government insider. He never worked for Ronald Reagan, as he claimed. He wasn't a famous computer scientist. I know, because I spent my life in that career field. He lied about his entire background and his entire education in order to sell fake stories with you about aliens and UFOs or whatever, secret space nonsense, right? So back to more information on the Pete Peterson GoFundMe. This is from Mr. Wilcock's blog, I believe. He hasn't lived in the house for well over a year now. He has a separate apartment that he pays for out of his pension. Nonetheless, an entire lifetime of his worldly possessions was still being stored in his house. Yeah, bottles of cat piss and dead cats, or excuse me, bottles of piss and dead cats, according to the people who cleaned out the property. Some were extremely valuable. We knew something like this might happen if he lost legal battles he was fighting. He had effectively caught them in lies again and again, committing almost unbelievable acts of fraud. David Wilcock is right here accusing a multi-billion-dollar bank of committing crimes and fraud. He goes on to say, we knew that if he ever did start removing items from the home, they were required by law to place them into storage. By the way, they did. They placed everything in the home in a storage bin and gave him a few months to get whatever he wanted. He never did so. We could repay the cost to recover the items. This would be very well worth it. The items are worth millions. No, that's completely and totally false. Another false statement from David Wilcock. I was set to inherit those items. That is a very key point here. There is nothing else like this on the horizon of my life. This was it. Pete wanted me to have greater financial stability in the future after all I have done to help him over the years, often when no one else would. Furthermore, there is a dazzling wealth of information, objects, and documents in the collection as well, far more than I can explain here. So Wilcock is saying that there's a wealth of classified information. Again, that opens up a whole can of legal worms. Why did he leave classified information in a residential home? He didn't. He's a fake whistleblower. He's a fake government insider. He's a fake Ronald Reagan science and technology advisor. You know, it's things like this that make people think, in my opinion, that make people think David Wilcock is a con artist, because he pushes completely and totally fake information for money. And remember, this is all related to a fundraiser. So it's hard to believe, but true. The judge in the case has committed multiple easily provable crimes. It's a foreclosure court. You're accusing a sitting judge on a foreclosure case of committing provable crimes? Great. I thought somebody ought to, send a letter to the judge. I almost did, but never did back when this happened. The most recent was the file of notice about the seizure of his assets to an old California address Pete haven't lived at in 18 years. So the Pete Peterson GoFundMe, it's all based on lies. So, Mr. Wilcock, when people express their personal belief that you're a con artist, there's evidence that people base those perceptions and beliefs on. And if you want to start suing people for their perceptions and beliefs, you better get a few $100 million, because there's an awful lot of people that agree with the people who may claim that you are, in their opinion, are a con artist or a scammer, because you're involved in so many of these things that are scammy, Mr. Wilcock. And let's take a moment. There is also Emery Smith, the deep state attack. Let me see if I can't pull that one up. Yeah, I'm going to have trouble finding that now. It's on David Wilcock's website somewhere. He still has it on his website. David Wilcock once claimed that Emery Smith was under deep state attack and everybody needed to pay, send money to a PayPal, right? Great. If anybody has that link to Mr. Wilcock's blog, okay. Oh no, that's not the proper link. I thought I found it. So essentially, I'll just explain it verbally. Essentially, Mr. Wilcock claimed on his blog that Emery Smith was under deep state attack, and they even killed his dog, right? None of that turned out to be true. Oh, thank you, Spooky. It really is. It really is sponsored by Spooky tonight. By the way, I want to thank, listen, here's the problem. We covered all of these stories. I should have all of this information, but some of this is years ago, and I've been through, I wear out more computers than shoes. So I wear out a computer, I throw it in a corner in case I ever need anything off of it, and I move on to the next computer, which I fill up with research. So thanks to Spooky and also Drew for helping me dig all of this stuff back. This is from David Wilcock's own website. So when people say that David Wilcock is, in their opinion, when people express their personal belief that David Wilcock is a con artist or a scammer, these are the reasons why. And see, here's where it gets crazy. If David Wilcock were to sue anybody who expressed their personal belief that David Wilcock is a con artist or a scammer, he's going to have to address every one of these things in court that people may base their opinion on about why they believe that. And he's going to have to prove that everything he said in the Emery Smith, or excuse me, in the Peterson GoFundMe alleged scam wasn't a scam. Then he's going to have to address this one. ET autopsy insider Emery Smith hit with massive attack after coming forward. Emery Smith claims to have autopsied 3,000 different types of ET humanoids. He later said that David Wilcock made that up, and he said 3,000 tissue samples, not ET humanoids. But so the very first sentence is lies. Provable lies. We could still dig out that clip of Emery Smith saying that David Wilcock made that up. The day after we announced his coming forward, he was hit with an attack that landed him in the emergency room. Right before his health collapsed, 3 black SUVs followed him and abducted his dog, Raven. Miraculously, Raven was found alive by good citizens after the perpetrators dumped her off on the highway. What actually happened is Emery Smith got drunk and his dog got out. Swear to God, and we have an on-the-record witness, his one-time father-in-law, or I should explain, the father of his longtime live-in girlfriend came out with a YouTube channel busting all of this as completely and totally fake. His oxygen level went down to 90%, which often coupled with the enormously high fever could very easily have killed him. This all screams of foul play. After we finished this article, his health slipped and he had to go back into the hospital once again. We are calling for your prayers and health and safety. These attacks reek of desperation on behalf of the deep state. Think about the implications. Yeah, so interestingly, so what happens is all of this is lies. And Emery Smith's father-in-law, we are one of the only people that still have the video, at least it's a video in one of our videos, where his father-in-law explained that all of this is related to Emery Smith's alcoholism. He wasn't under deep state attack. He was under attack of a vodka bottle. And you see him here in the hospital? According to Emery Smith's one-time living girlfriend's father, Emery Smith was in the hospital here for alcohol poisoning, for severe alcohol poisoning. It wasn't a deep state attack. It was alcohol poisoning. And then, according to this points on the curve, his one-time girlfriend's father, Emery Smith and David Wilcock promoted this, and then they collected $50,000 in PayPal funds. And this, everything in this is a lie. The dog got out because he was drunk. He got in a car accident because he was severely drunk. And then, yes. And of course, this typical David Wilcock blog post. Look at how long this is. So him and Emery Smith are claiming that people are leaving bullets on Emery Smith's counter. The father of his girlfriend said that was his bullet. He had those bullets and those caliber of bullets and that caliber of firearm. Yeah. It seems to be interconnected. More threats. And again, this is all fake information. This car accident, in the second and even more serious incident, which again was only a half hour after my article had launched, Paul, he used Emery Smith twice here. Paul is Emery Smith. Paul suffered a head-on collision. So he's claiming he has two government insiders here. They're both Emery Smith. This is an accident that Emery Smith got into while he was driving drunk. There is no Paul. That was Emery Smith. Complete and total lies. All right. Last night, I got a kind of text from Emery that you would never want to see. Here was part of it. We pulled over to let the dogs out, and 3 black SUVs followed us right after sunset. They pulled off about 50 meters away and took my dog and accelerated away. I'm devastated. My only last family member. Yeah, that turned out, according to his girlfriend's father, to be fake. Emery Smith got drunk and let the dog out, and some kind neighbors had to return the dog. Proof of the dog's abduction. No, this is the neighbor that found the dog after Emery Smith got drunk and let it out. Just picked up a dog from the middle of Dinah Shore near San Luis Rey, who was railroaded by 2 cars just ahead of me. I can't get her. I can't take her for the night even due to cats at home. Would be willing to drop her off in the morning to a shelter. Anyone have any suggestions? That was when Emery Smith got drunk and his dog got out. And David Wilcock is using it to claim that there's a deep state Men in Black attack against Emery Smith, who, by the way, is another complete and total fraud. In his case, Emery Smith was previously charged with fraud and was fired from an employer for allegedly stealing money or financial misdealings, whatever. Here's photos of Emery's stay in the emergency room. This is when he was in the emergency room for severe alcohol poisoning. So look at the nature of the opportunism here. These guys have things like, happen to them like, oh, I don't know, they get in a car accident drunk. They're using it to start a fundraiser on PayPal to collect $50,000 from the UFO community, claiming that they're under deep state and Men in Black attack. This is one of the reasons that people may express their belief that David Wilcock is a con artist. And by the way, just to be clear, I'm not saying that David Wilcock got a cent. I don't know that he did of the Pete Peterson money or the Emery Smith money, but he helped promote these things that generated the funds. So he was directly involved in both of these fundraising efforts, which were both based on provably fraudulent information. We won't be intimidated. We will pull through this. One final interesting note, right? I'm happy to report that Emery had a miraculous recovery today after all the mass meditation and prayer. His temperature come down, his vital signs have stabilized, and he is not in the hospital. Yeah. And of course, Saudi mass arrests. Yeah. Here, update, same day. PayPal unfroze the account. So here he is promoting and telling people to give money to Emery Smith because he's under deep state attack, exactly like he did for Pete Peterson, claiming he was under deep state attack. This is twice now that David Wilcock has claimed that his so-called government insiders, who are not government insiders, they're both con artists, proven con artists in both cases, claiming they're under deep state attack to collect $50,000 and $55,000 respectively for each of these fundraising efforts. Here, David Wilcock is telling people, click here to donate for the Emery Smith Survival Fund. What's he surviving? A bottle of vodka. That's what he's surviving. He had severe alcohol problems. Yes. Thank you very much. Cory sent me another link. Here's another one of David Wilcock claiming that he's under deep state attack because the brakes went out on his car, right? David Wilcock's brake sabotage. Was it the Dark Alliance? The main cylinder of David Wilcock's brakes mysteriously died at 2:15 on Friday, August 11, 2017, after a massive wave of attacks had already occurred. The last time his brakes died like this was when he was driving to the Disclosure Project in rush hour Washington, D.C. traffic. Had this happened just a few minutes earlier in the Topanga Mountains, it would very easily have caused a fatality. The brake pedal went all the way down to the floor with no response. This is a war. And on a personal level, it just went red hot. Given the surrounding cluster of threats we have gotten, this does not seem to be coincidental. We're going on Jimmy Church this Wednesday night to address the almost ridiculous number of attacks coming our way. Then he talks about Operation Mockingbird, CIA takeover of American media, infiltration of traffic, and social choke points online. Yeah, right. Another prominent recent example of Kabbalah overplaying their hand was the massive suppression of the hit counter on a recent viral video. So here he's claiming that he himself is under deep state attack because the brakes went out in his car. And like I said, at various times he has claimed that his wife was driving the car at the time the brakes went out and she could have been murdered. And in this post, he's claiming he was driving the car. So which is it, David Wilcock? And again, just claiming that your brakes went out as a deep state or Men in Black attack shows, you know, a pattern here. He keeps claiming they're under all these attacks. Take a look at Cory Goode's latest intel update. At least we will consider as an intellectual exercise that this might actually be true information. The Alliance, by the way, the Alliance is a fake organization made up by Pete Peterson, that fake government insider that was involved in those pump and dump stock scams with a fake education and a fake background. And yeah, the Alliance doesn't exist, but David Wilcock thinks it's real, right? The Alliance felt it was very important that they pass this along to us. Bullshit. There is no Alliance. That's right. Mass arrests. Ever since 2011, we have been leaking alliance-based intel about a planned operation to conduct mass arrests of key cabal members. How many times is David Wilcock going to predict mass arrests? It never happens, right? And there's 3 pages to this. He wrote 3 pages, and it's not just pages. It's like hundreds of pages. Oh, my God. It's incredible the amount of, like, nonsense, right? The attack started with a bang. Sophisticated hacking also destroyed my YouTube channel. There's no evidence of that. He provides no evidence of that. But he's under deep state attack. Karmic trampoline. Trust no one. About Convergence, the movie. Here he is promoting the Convergence Pictures LLC. There's so many scammy, shady business dealings that Mr. Wilcock has been involved in that I'm having a real hard time keeping track of them all. We'll go back to the Emery Smith. So they promoted the Emery Smith PayPal donation scam. And that turns out to be based on complete and total lies, just like the Pete Peterson thing. Great. So we're gonna go back to 1 second. Oh, wait a minute. I have it here. I have to get our main. By the way, we're sharing all of this information on a Google Drive, a public Google folder, because if anybody gets sued by David Wilcock, I want them to have access to all of this information about some of the shady business dealings that Mr. Wilcock has been involved in. So Convergence Pictures LLC. Let me make that bigger so we can read it here. Convergence is on the brink of signing a major plus caliber screenwriter. And we can use your help in the meantime. Listen to David, 9 p.m. tonight on the Raelian. Is that Raelian Alien? Major new developments with Convergence. As you may know, I've been developing the Convergence film with my partner, Billy Blake, for over 4 years now. We've seen highs and lows and roughly 10 complete script rewrites, several of which I've done myself after a massive study of the art of screenwriting that included detailed researches into all the best books available on the subject, over 15 in total. This guy just loves to tell everybody how smart he is. I read 15 books. The film has already transformed substantially, starting out as a documentary and evolving into a dramatic thriller that takes the feel of a Da Vinci Code storyline, but weaves the most incredible scientific data I've ever put together. We do feel very confident that this is the best way to reach a mass audience, right? As a window into the film biz of nothing else, I certainly knew none of this. Okay, so we're going to publicly reveal his identity at this stage. We can now tell you that we are on the brink of signing a highly in-demand contemporary A-list screenwriter who has worked with Spielberg and other Academy Award-winning directors. So he collected investment capital from people, telling them that he had an A-list screenwriter. Did he ever reveal who that A-list screenwriter was? Did he show the contract that A-list screenwriter signed? No, he didn't. Legally, we're allowed to have up to 35 investors on this project. Anything above that is considered fraud by the SEC. Which is why we can't raise money in small increments where people send $500 and the like. The ceiling is actually a good thing. It prevents scam artists from setting up Ponzi schemes that rip people off by saying they're doing a film and then running off to the Cayman Islands with their money. And guess what David Wilcock did? He apparently or allegedly collected investor money and he never made this film. And here in his own pitch for people, he says, this ceiling is actually a good thing as it prevents scam artists from setting up Ponzi schemes that rip people off by saying they're doing a film and then running off to the Cayman Islands with their money and never producing a film. Wow. We have a small core of stage one investors, as they are called, who have financed the production and development of Convergence up until now. Signing this incredible writer will substantially increase the likelihood that we will have a huge blockbuster hit on our hands. By the way, you're not allowed to lie to people when you're soliciting public investments. That's against SEC guidelines. The meaning behind stage one is simple. You get a significantly better deal in terms of percentage returns by investing at stage one than you do in stage 2 or 3, where we have a locked script and a full budget. Just in this past week, one of our big players we're in touch with, let's see a script and a budget, which of course we won't have until this writer comes up with a more finished product. Some lawyers actually howled at us for what we were doing because the extra bonus percentages of our stage one investors will come directly out of their own portion of the revenue stream, not from creative accounting where you simply rearrange the investment's percentage on the side and leave yours untouched. Okay, so the minimum to invest in Convergence Pictures was $10,000. So I'll just put this in the form of a question. David Wilcock, who was the A-list writer you told people while you were soliciting investment capital that you had already signed to write the picture, to write the screenplay? Who was that? Can we see the contract? Or was that a lie? And if that is a lie, isn't that against SEC guidelines? And next, how much money did you collect from investors for Convergence Pictures LLC, which, by the way, went belly up? The company no longer existed after soliciting public investment. And just to be clear and fair to Mr. Wilcock, we're nothing if not fair here. I don't know how much money he collected. For all I know, he didn't collect any money with this investment opportunity for people. But I believe he did based on forum posts on the Avalon forum in which an unhappy investor was upset because they never got updates on the film and they never got their money back. So I just have a lot of questions about Convergence Pictures LLC. The California Domestic Limited Liability, this is all the way back in 2005, this one. Great. And we omitted the address. Then we get to the David Wilcock Spiritual Foundation. Like I said, there's so many of these shady business dealings. And by the way, if you're just joining us tonight, since David Wilcock is threatening to sue critics, especially anybody who calls him a con artist, I think, he's very upset that people on the internet are calling him a con artist. I thought we'd present our best evidence. And by the way, pinned in the description, or excuse me, pinned in the live chat is a poll. So after we've presented all the evidence that we have, and by the way, this isn't all the evidence, David Wilcock. This is a small portion of it. I have a very large portion of evidence that I've never made public. But should somebody be foolish enough to, I don't know, file a lawsuit against me, I will make all of my information public during the extent of those legal proceedings. So the Wilcock Spiritual Foundation, and here's where it gets good, friends. David Wilcock started a 501c3 nonprofit, and he started that with his one-time wife, Beth Wilcock, while he was still married. And okay, so they started charity, and one second, I gotta download this and pop it back into Google. I don't know why they don't let you make it bigger. All right, so now we're gonna share this tab. And by the way, David Wilcock, you asked for all of this information to be redisplayed. I would be happy to share all of the information we're sharing tonight with any critic or so-called troll of David Wilcock who he, in my opinion, unjustly, unfairly, and unethically would seek lawfare against or file lawsuits against. Okay. So we have to go back here to our main presentation. All right. Let me show that we've done our due diligence in investigating this. Here's an email I sent some time ago. David Wilcock, for those unaware, if you run a charity, you're required by law to release filings for each year that you are in operation. And those filings are called 990 forms. And that is for transparency. And it shows the public how much money you collected and what you did with that money. To the best of my knowledge, Mr. Wilcock to this day still refuses to release the filings for 2019 and 2020. And by the way, that may include 2022 and 2023, or yeah. One second. No, let me check here. Okay, we have one from, he did release one from 2018, and he also released one, let me check here again, for 2021. So he released one in the year 2019, did not release one in 2019 or 2020. He released one of these forms in 2020 and has not released any forms in 2022, 2023, or 2024, to my knowledge. And I did just check this today. So David Wilcock would appear to be in violation of the law when it comes to running a public charity because he refused to release the filings. That's a big problem for Mr. Wilcock. And again, this was supposed to be a charity that him and his wife ran. And what we found when we investigated just the 990 forms that he did release, what we found is that Mr. Wilcock almost did no charity that we could find. He's free to correct me. They did give a very tiny percentage. I think it was 1 cent on the dollar, or maybe it was a nickel on the dollar he gave to other charities. But he refused to release the filings for 2019 and 2020, and I tried several times. This is me addressing Julia, who was at the accounting office that was on record as running the accounting for his charity. This is my second request with your business for the 990 forms for Wilcock Healing Foundation, which your company represents. My last request was made more than a month ago, June 8th. I still have not received those forms from you. As far as I know, any charitable organization has 30 days to provide these upon requests. Previous to my request with you, I have emailed both David and Elizabeth Wilcock and requested these forms for 2019 and 2020. I have also requested these forms in their YouTube channel comments section and by using the contact forms on both their public websites. It will be very difficult for them to claim that they did not get these requests, which I have carefully documented for months and months now. Please advise your company, please advise, is your company just refusing to provide these 990 forms I have requested? Previously, you promised to get back to me and never did. Please advise, Stephen Cambion, host of Truth Seekers. So this is where it gets interesting, though, because I believe that there's a reason David Wilcock didn't release the 2019 and 2020 forms. He didn't like people knowing how much money he collected, and I freely admit this is my opinion and speculation. I don't think he liked people knowing how much money he collected and what he did with it all. This is 2018, and boy, it's a laugh riot. So in 2018, David Wilcock, for his charity, collected $94,000 in charitable donations. Now, remember, I told you that the 990 forms show the public two things for every public charity. How much money was collected. We know in 2018, he collected almost $100,000 or $94,000. But then we get to what his operating expenses is. And here's where it gets interesting. David Wilcock, for his charity that did no charitable work, near as I can tell, he's free to correct me, spent $4,675 for audio and video supplies, $126 for auto expenses, $60 for bank fees, $759 for computer supplies, $490 for depreciation. He made the charity pay for his internet. And I'm just curious, is that the same internet that you use at your home for your personal needs? Is that the same internet that you use for your for-profit company? Meals and entertainment. This is where it gets interesting. So they collect $94,000, him and his wife. They spent $3,973 in the year 2018 on meals and entertainment. And I'm just here to ask you, if you donate to a charity, do you think they're spending $4,000 of the charity's money on meals and entertainment in one fiscal year? Here's where it gets interesting. Production supplies, $1,975. What do you need $2,000 worth of production supplies for? I don't believe that they did any charitable work. So what is he spending all this money for? Here's where it gets even more interesting. He spent $5,585 on software. He spent $10,000 on supplies, bringing a grand total. He also bought $5,000 worth of furniture with the charitable donations, $4,000 worth of machinery and equipment, meaning he spent in the year 2018 $30,000 of those charitable donations. Now, here's where it gets really hairy. If David Wilcock bought software for his charity, it must be used for his charity. He can't use those audio video supplies for his for-profit company. He can't use those computer supplies for his for-profit company. He can't use the production supplies, the software, the telephone, or any of that for anything other than his charity. So I'm just going to put this in the form of a question. Do any of us believe that David Wilcock spent something like $15,000 on software? I'm sorry, $20,000 worth of AV supplies like cameras and microphones and all that, software and supplies, and never used any of that for his for-profit YouTube channel or his for-profit courses or his for-profit public speaking fees? And can we see receipts of all that software and get some assurance, and receipts of all that equipment and get some assurance that he's never used it in any of his for-profit or personal needs? This is where it's a problem. And so there is one more. Mr. Wilcock also released a statement or a 990 of his 2021 takes. But again, I tried every which way I could. They would never give me the 2019 and the 2021. But we can see in 2021 what he collected and what he spent the money on. Now, remember, he's telling people that it's a charity. First year, he collected $94,000. We don't know what they collected in 2019. We don't know how much they collected in 2020 or what they spent the money on in 2019 or 2020. contributions, gifts, grants, and similar amounts received. So they collected $47,000 in 2021. And here he's paying somebody compensation and employee benefits of $1,400. Again, I need him to show me what charitable work he did. Occupancy and rent, $5,000 for a charity that apparently or allegedly did no charitable work other than give pennies on the dollar of the money he collected to other charities. That's what we've been able to determine. That's the only charitable work we've been able to see that he could claim this is part of our charitable work. He gave pennies on the dollar to all this money he collected to other charities. Other expenses, $43,000 in other expenses. Total expenses, $50,000. In 2021, he spent more money than the charity collected, but he didn't really give a real breakdown of what it was all spent on in these forms. Maybe he did later. Let me see. It's been a while since I've been through these forms. But we now know that just in the years 2018 and 2021, he collected almost $150,000. And in the year 2021, he spent more than he made. He's even putting money on a credit card for the charity. $3,345 was put in charity. He also is using his own charity for a tax shelter for his for-profit company, in my opinion. He contributed $8,000 to his own charity. Intangible assets, $7,500. I don't know what that's about. Oh, he spent $858 or $1,430 in machinery and equipment. That would usually be, computers and things. He spent $1,149 on more furniture. Why do you need to spend all this money on furniture for a charity that's not doing any charity? That's what I'm confused about. Merchant account fees, $30. He spent $50 on security. Dues and subscriptions, he spent $108. Web hosting services, $188. Auto expenses. Why is the charity paying his auto expenses? Charitable contributions. That's all they did out of 40. Wait, let's see. So they gave $292 of all this money they collected to other charities. Charitable contributions, $292. And what did they collect? $47,000. Friends, I want to ask you, if you contributed money to a charity, would you think that out of $50,000, they only gave $292 to charity and the rest they spent on furniture, meals and entertainment, software, computers, audio and visual equipment, $1,000 for contract labor, $1,300 for repairs and maintenance, $1,400 worth of office supplies. Friends, I don't know. I used to live in, I used to work in corporate America. Do you have any idea how much $1,400 worth? You could fill a truck with $1,400 worth of office supplies. Meals and entertainment, again, $2,178. So between 2018 and 2021 here, they spent $45, $55, almost $7,000 on meals and entertainment for themselves out of charitable contributions. Hey, David Wilcock, when people have the perception and express their opinion that you're a scammer or a con artist, might it be because you and your wife spent $6,500 or $7,000 in meals and entertainment for 2 fiscal years out of charitable donations? Why didn't you do charitable work with that $6,500 or $7,000? Do you know how many times you could go out to Applebee's for $7,000? And here we have it again. In 2021, he spent $3,500 on software. Why do you need $3,500 worth of software for a charity that did no charitable work except for giving $292 to charity? You needed $3,500 worth of software to give $292 $292 of the money you collected to charity? This, my friends, is why people claim or express their belief that David Wilcock is a con artist and a scammer. Production supplies, $5,328. What did you produce? To my knowledge, he did not produce any charitable videos or charitable works. So look at the money here. It is ridiculous how much he spent. They spent $6,000 on telephone expenses? Come on, dude. They spent $7,500 on an email service provider? $7,700 in training? Why do you need $7,700 worth of training to give away $292 out of the almost $50,000 you collected in this year? None of this makes any sense. He charged the charity for $3,370 worth of his travel. Did you really incur $3,370 worth of travel expenses to give away $292 in charitable donations? Advertising and promotion, $1,000. You spent $1,000 to promote a charity that does no charitable work. And by the way, I don't know that they didn't do charitable work. And I don't understand this, because the only thing charitable that we can see or that we can find from these documents is that he gave $292 to charity in 2021. And there was another small donation of money in 2018. Where are the 990 forms for 2019 and 2020? He's required by law to provide them to anybody who asks. I asked for them multiple times in multiple ways. I asked his accounting firm. I filled out contact forms on his website, his wife's website. I put requests in the comments of his videos on YouTube. I sent emails. Nothing. And to be clear, if you run a 501c3 charity, you are required by law to give those forms to any member of the public who asks for them. That's my understanding. He's free to correct me on that as well. So we're not even to the end of it, friends. There's more. There's more, David Wilcock. I got more for you, lots more. And like I said, this is only a small portion of the evidence that we have collected since we started researching and investigating David Wilcock and his various claims over the years. Let me see if we can get back to the main presentation. I'm getting lost here. Okay, we'll get back to the main presentation. 1 second. All right. So again, they refuse to release their filings for 2019 and 2020. And by the way, I'm also requesting them for 2021, 2022, 2023, or I'm sorry, not 2021. He released that one. For 2022, 2023, and 2024. I want to see those 990s. I want to know how much you collected and what you spent them on. Now here, someone got the first set of 990s before me. And when they did, David Wilcock threatened them with a lawsuit. Cease and desist order regarding your relentless, violent, and aggressive ongoing unlawful activities, including defamation, harassment, cyberstalking, doxing, gang stalking, solicited financial support directed at my clients, David Wilcock and Elizabeth Wilcock collectively, the Wilcocks, and their business entities, Divine Cosmos, LLC, and Wilcock Spiritual Healing and Foundation. You are hereby ordered to immediately cease and desist your unlawful activities directed at my client, Cory Goode, including but not limited to his business associates. So the Liz Lurie, who's been involved in that transfer of David Wilcock's property, his, some would say, multi-million-dollar mansion house that he owned, which got, by the way, got $60,000 or so worth of IRS liens against it shortly before they transfer it. That same lawyer is sending people these threatening messages. You are ordered, do not directly contact witnesses, potential witnesses, third parties who have participated, right? Oh, wait a minute. Let me make this a little smaller so we can get it up all on the screen. Yeah, so this person sent several, Liz Lurie sent several very threatening messages to somebody who was simply sharing the 990 forms. And this is a problem. We'll take a moment to recognize some kind and generous people. I'm sorry, get wrapped up in the presentation here. Legal Eagle with the kind and generous $5. David Wilcock had to keep saying, I'm not a con man. He must be trying to convince himself. Yeah, absolutely. Wise Monkey, the Russian election result was less predictable. £1.99, and then Spooky with $2. One, check Facebook and send a link to the article about the car sabotage. Yeah, thank you all for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. Thank you very much for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash.
So, yeah, you know, the evidence upon which people may base their opinion that David Wilcock is a con artist is massive. And here, David Wilcock says, my wife and I were actually down to our last $3,000 before we started this course. So it was a pretty dire situation. You know, the way that it got timed was it just happened to work out. Also, David Wilcock. So this is real. You don't get unauthorized access to military facilities. This is our facility that we own. This is okay. We actually have paid for the whole thing, and we've got a great deal because of one of the things that we're going to be doing is creating thousands and thousands of jobs. For those unaware, David Wilcock and Statti Aerospace, they promised the local community that they were going to create thousands of jobs. And they signed up for these tax incentives and breaks from the local government of Niagara to the tune of millions of dollars, and they created not one job. And in fact, the local Niagara authorities just pulled that deal because they did not keep their promises. David Wilcock is not a man of his word. And you see that airplane hangar he's so proud of, and he told everybody they would create thousands of jobs in that airplane hangar, and he told everybody that they would be building hover cars and with free energy engines. That hangar is currently filled with garbage dumpsters. That's their only source of income. A garbage dumpster company rents that facility and stores garbage dumpsters inside of it. They created no jobs. They did not create any products for sale, but they did get caught lying about having wind tunnel contracts. They got caught lying about having contracts to build laser space weapons for the United States military. They had to take that claim off their website because it was completely and totally untrue. Mr. Wilcock has been claiming that they're getting these $1 million deals. They have no income. This company, Statti Aerospace, is being sued by its creditors to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, I believe. They're also being sued for $1 million from a previous investor who described David Wilcock's Statti Aerospace company in the court documents as an investment scheme and a Ponzi, investment scam and a Ponzi scheme. So then he's telling people about a new insider named Ben, and that Mr. Wilcock is working closely with Pete Peterson's associates, and Pete Peterson's associates are going to help him build hover cars somehow. Yeah, and I had the clip of that. Oh yeah, I do have the clip of that. So let's share that. Here, David Wilcock is claiming that he's working with several associates of Pete Peterson. Now, remember, Pete Peterson is the fake government insider who claimed to work for Ronald Reagan, claimed to be a scientist. His education was fake. He didn't work for Ronald Reagan. And here, David Wilcock is claiming that he's going to build hover cars with free energy engines with associates, close associates of the fake government insider Pete Peterson, who, by the way, was by all evidence available, a con artist who participated in lying to investors in pump and dump stock scams. Great. So if Pete Peterson is a complete and total fraud with a fake education, with a fake work history, with fake claims of being a government insider, fake claims of working for Ronald Reagan, fake claims of working for the Russian equivalent of NASA, fake claims of working for Ronald Reagan, fake claims of being a scientist, fake claims of being an inventor, fake claims of being an early computer pioneer. That's who Pete Peterson really is. And here, David Wilcock is telling his audience that he's building hover cars with several close associates of his original fake government insider.
Because I am working on hover car technology right now. I'm not joking. I'm not going to talk about it until we've got something for you, but we're getting pretty close. Once we get to that point, I can talk a lot more, but several of Pete Peterson's former associates I'm working with on this, and it's very, very real.
Pete Peterson is a complete and total fraud, yet here he is saying that this is very, very real, and I'm working on this with several close associates of Pete Peterson. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And there's a reason that it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and that's because it's fruit from a poison tree. If Pete Peterson is a complete and total fraud with a fake education, all right, if Pete Peterson is a proven fraud, how does he have associates? You won't want to miss this. Together, Ben and I, and Ben is the CEO of Statti Aerospace. And by the way, there's another problem here that's shady and scammy, and that is that David Wilcock and Statti Aerospace are actively trying to get investors while David Wilcock is on public YouTube live streams lying and saying that the Statti Aerospace CEO, Christopher Beskar, is a former government, employee somehow who created thousands of spaceships for the secret space program. But before we knew that Christopher Beskar was his insider, his new fake insider, by the way, they presented no evidence or proof that Christopher Beskar ever created a spaceship. And in fact, Christopher Beskar has been running what has been Statti Aerospace, which again has been called an investment scam and a Ponzi scheme in court documents. They took $1 million from somebody. He didn't get any of his money back. He sued them. He's been running that company for decades and has yet to show any proof of any of his claims. They're great at making like real fancy, 3D rendered pictures of high-tech airplanes on the internet. But to my knowledge, and everybody else's that I've talked to, including John Spadavaccio, who's investigating Statti to write a whole book on it, more on that, Statti Aerospace has never produced a plane that they could show people and show flight tests of or anything. They've never produced an aircraft product. Sometimes there could be an aerospace company and they don't make whole airplanes. In fact, I'm aware through my research efforts here that there's at least a few aerospace companies that just make parts. They might make pistons for jet engines or whatever. They make seats for cockpits, but they don't make whole airplanes. Statti can't even prove that they've ever designed, manufactured, and marketed a part for an airplane, let alone an entire airplane. But David Wilcock is, in his courses, telling people that Christopher Beskar built spaceships for the secret space program. Ben and I will appear side by side. Before we knew who Ben was, he was saying, I have a new insider, Ben, named after Ben Kenobi, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You won't want to miss this. Together, Ben and I will appear side by side, sharing new insights about ETs, the technology that is available for us to use right now, and how we are being called to meet and combat that would be considered pure evil at this time. I don't need to tell you that this is urgent, because I know you can feel what is going on in the world right now. It all sounds very similar to the many ancient prophecies I have been sharing with you for well over 2 decades now. If you step into this course experience now, before the timer runs out or we hit capacity, you'll receive an exclusive 2-hour insider-to-insider VIP event with Ben and me. Ben is Christopher Beskar from Statti Aerospace. Ben's true identity will be revealed for the first time during the course experience, and together we will answer your questions live. This direct live session with Ben is only being offered to you, an insider at my community, and the offer will expire. By the way, David Wilcock may have, I still have to research this more, broken the law because he kept a timer on his website saying limited time offer. You got to sign up for it or the offer's over. But then it just reset constantly. To my knowledge, you're not allowed to do that. It's against the law. It's false advertisement. If it's not truly a limited time offer, you're not allowed to say it is. And David Wilcock did with this one. And this is the one where he was telling people that if you take my course for $333 on anti-gravity and free energy, you'll be able to do it too. He said that. And we know, we have on the record comment from Mark from Falcon Space that he believed that the course was nonsense and a scam. And again, people are allowed to express their opinion. Here's a person that, this person has an actual real free energy lab, which is interesting. And we've shared this before, but I'm going to share it once again. And this is from Falcon Space Labs.
So we're here in Niagara Falls, New York at Statti Aerospace, aka David Wilcock's UFO factory. And as you can see, there's nothing going on.
There is garbage dumpsters inside the hangar, though.
The main entrance is locked. There's nobody there. There's nobody in the parking lot on the side of a semi-busy road, but there's not a single person in the building.
Nobody there.
And yeah, they're supposed to be in full production right now, and I don't see a single employee there. So, David Wilcock, you're full of shit.
There you go. And by the way, this isn't just some person that's upset that they lost $333. And again, people are allowed to, I'm allowed to read comments from people. Osiris Christansis said 100% correct. David Wilcock is a complete fraud. Statti Aerospace are a scam. They have produced absolutely nothing and never will. Yeah. So, this is kind of crazy. I was trying to see, there was another comment from this Falcon Space, which basically called David Wilcock's course a scam. I'll see if I can't find that while we try to sort of bookend this presentation. Now, if you came here tonight and you were looking for, us to just go over David Wilcock's nonsense, we decided to forego that tonight because Mr. Wilcock is, again, he's threatening to sue trolls and critics. And it's ridiculous, right? Okay, so I'm going to be sharing this from Falcon Space. I did find it. And this is David Wilcock. He has me blocked, so you can't see his post, but David Wilcock posted his stream, and Falcon Space says, I'm having a positive day too. I'm positive that David Wilcock is a scam artist grifter who stole $350 from me for a sham anti-gravity lesson that was complete nonsense. His factory is an empty building, and he promised it would be in full production by now. So during the course, David Wilcock promised that they'd be in full production producing hover cars by now. Another false claim. And just to kind of, let you know, this isn't just a random person. Falcon Space is just not some random guy that took David Wilcock's course. In New Jersey, and I'm going to visit this place, by the way, he has an entire laboratory that is dedicated to, I would call it exotic physics and anti-gravity propulsion. He's doing all these experiments in anti-gravity and, exotic propulsion. So this is not an unqualified individual. And by all intents, all accounts that I have heard, David Wilcock's anti-gravity course was a cobbled together mess of shit that he found on the internet. There was no original information, according to the witnesses that I spoke to. There was no original information. And by the way, Mr. Wilcock, in selling that course, promised people, if you take my course, you'll be able to do it too. And here's a guy with a whole anti-gravity lab, and he wasn't able to crack free energy or crack anti-gravity after giving David Wilcock $333. I think he was mistaken. The course was $333. Falcon Space said $350. So David Wilcock is very upset that people are calling him a con artist and a scammer. And by the way, we've read many of the comments that people are saying about David Wilcock on the internet. I'm free to do that. We're just reporting what people are saying. That's not slander. That's not defamation. That's talking about what people are talking about. And we do commentary here. We also, of course, do investigative journalism. And we've been investigating Mr. Wilcock and his various shady business dealings, which I have tried to detail for you tonight the best I could. And I just want to put on the record that we did this tonight for a reason. We did this because I'm very concerned that Mr. Wilcock is going to go down the dark, dangerous path that Cory Goode went down. And he is going to legally, in my opinion, if he sues people who say he's a con artist or a scammer or that, you know, or he claims are trolls of his, those are his online critics. If he sues any of those people, he's basically going to be legally terrorizing people, trying to hurt people, make them pay, get revenge. Does that sound like a spiritual guru to anybody in my audience? And I said we'll share some comments. So you are free. Let me know what you think of David Wilcock in my live chat. Because after all, we're just sharing comments people have here and opinions. And everybody on the internet is certainly entitled to have their opinion about a public figure. And again, I want to ask Mr. Wilcock, if the public's, if so many people on the internet's perception of you is that you're a con artist or a scammer, is that your fault or theirs? After all I've shown tonight, I think that any reasonable person seeing this amount of evidence, and by the way, it's not all I have, it's just all I have time for tonight. Aaron Flores. Well, I can only share my opinion with you. I know the answers. I know why Wilcock lies and commits consumer fraud and is never prosecuted. I've understood this very well over the years. Yes, and Aaron Flores says, even though I feel participants in such a deception are vile, humanity deserves to know, we deserve to know it's our future. Imagine all the good that can come to humanity once the masses understood the truth about our world, our history. Yeah, Aaron Flores says, Wilcock only serves as a distraction, as an obstacle towards true human prosperity. He is an agent of deception and distraction. It's so vile. Wilcock would be a better person if he were a banker earning interest, a politician. Instead, he is an accessory to deception of what humanity needs to understand to prosper. Yeah. So share with me your opinions of David Wilcock. And after all, we're all just expressing our constitutional rights to free speech. If you're a public figure and you've been involved in all these things that we've shared, and by the way, there's more. I got a lot more for you. But I can only jam so much in and organize so much in one presentation. Do you, as an audience member here or member of the public at large, do you believe that it's reasonable that someone would say that this man is a con artist or a scammer based on what we have shown you? And this is just the least of it. Of course, David Wilcock is right now telling people that his latest $333 course, well, I think it's discounted now because nobody bought it. His latest $333 course is prophetic, secret, sacred information from the Archangel Michael, who first appeared to him as the Egyptian god Ra, but he was masquerading. And I'm here to tell you, I talked to a Christian minister, I talked to a Catholic priest, just to be sure I was correct in my theological interpretation of what Wilcock is saying. Essentially, David Wilcock is saying that the Archangel Michael is using deception and appearing and pretending to be an Egyptian god when he's really the Archangel Michael. So I talked to a Christian minister who is well known for his theological knowledge. I talked to a Catholic priest. I talked to a Jewish rabbi, and I talked to a Muslim imam. And all four of those people agree with my interpretation in that angels would not, could not, and do not ever deceive people. But you know who does? Demonic entities often deceive people. Demonic entities pretend to be, according to the Catholic priests I've spoken to and other Catholic priests. By the way, there's Catholic priests who do exorcisms that claim that demons often masquerade as Roman gods and things, Greek gods, things like Zeus and Apollo. The demons will claim to be Zeus or Apollo while they're possessing people. So there is a long and well-established history of demonic entities masquerading as other entities, either dead relatives, angels, different gods. There is zero history of angels pretending to be something they're not or using deception. So even from a theological perspective, David Wilcock's entire story about, I used to channel the Egyptian god Ra, but really that was the Archangel Michael, it falls apart under theological discussion by anybody that's actually educated in theology. And of course, there is also the test of a prophet, which is a biblical principle which says that if the prophet is wrong, even once, he's not in communication with divine or angelic sources, because God and angelic sources would not give inaccurate information. In the very first book of these Michael prophecies, David Wilcock claims that the Archangel Michael said that Cory Goode's information is entirely accurate. And just a few days later, Cory Goode did that deposition where he admitted he made up the stuff. He'd never been to space, proving none of his information was accurate and that the angel was wrong. The biblical test of a prophet says they only have to be wrong once. I can provide you with 5 more specific examples of David Wilcock's so-called Archangel Michael being wrong, but one is all you need. So David Wilcock fails the test of a prophet over and over and over again. He's not in communication with divine or angelic sources. And again, if people want to express their belief that somebody claiming to be in possession of secret or sacred angelic knowledge who decides they're going to sell that on the internet for $333, if people want to express their belief that a person who would do that is a con artist, they're free to do that. That's your constitutional right. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I, for one, think that there's no way, in my understanding of theology, and what do I know? I just had 12 years of Catholic school. I was educated by Jesuit priests, brothers, and nuns. And I had constant Bible study, scripture study, Sunday school. They used to make us memorize different Bible verses. Here, I'll give you one that is appropriate for tonight. David Wilcock is threatening to sue his critics on the internet who are expressing their opinion that he may or could be a con artist based on his behavior and doing things like selling secret or sacred information from the Archangel Michael for $333, something that a lot of people just don't think an angel would do. Why would an angel give sacred or secret information or prophecies to a man like David Wilcock and then be okay with him selling that information for $333? Wouldn't a real angel just give the information and tell that person to give that information to the rest of humanity? A lot of people that I've talked to believe that. So if people express their belief and opinion that David Wilcock is a con artist for just that one thing, selling secret or sacred information from angels for $333, I believe people are entitled to that, and people have a right to do that. David Wilcock has a proven track record of deception, misdirection, misinformation, disinformation, fake information, fake whistleblowers, fake government insiders, and more. If people express their belief and opinion that David Wilcock is a con artist based on his history of all of these things that we've shown you as examples tonight, plus the latest, claiming that they're going to produce hover cars and they haven't, claiming he's in communication with the Archangel Michael but not proving it, I mean, if people are going to say that the guy's a con artist, they have a right to. And he doesn't have a right to sue anybody who says that, especially based on this history, which we have shared with you tonight. And by the way, the major reason that we changed our usual format and try to do this presentation this way tonight is because I want to share all of this information with anybody that David Wilcock is stupid enough and foolish enough to file a lawsuit against for expressing their First Amendment rights and expressing their belief and opinion about David Wilcock. People are free to do that. He doesn't have a right to silence critics, especially based on this history that we've shown you. And I ask you, my friends in the live chat, would anybody sitting on a jury blame someone for calling this man a con artist or a scammer based solely on the information I have shared with you this evening? Remembering that I've got a lot more of this. I have so much more of this. So what is David Wilcock going to sue people for? Defamation, slander? He has to prove that somebody knew what they were saying was completely and totally incorrect. And that may apply to facts, but it doesn't apply to opinions. Like, everybody is free to say, in my opinion, David Wilcock is a con artist based on his history and the things that I have seen. I believe people are free to say that. I believe that's your constitutional right to free speech and your right to freedom of expression. And as far as torturous interference, that means interfering with somebody's business. If somebody showing people evidence of all your shady business dealings over the years is enough to make people stop doing business with you, then again, you need to work on your business practices. Take a course in business ethics. You can do it at any community college. I just find it just hysterical that David Wilcock is so offended that so many people on the internet's impression or perception of him is that he's a con artist, that he claims he's going to start suing people who express that. That's a real problem. But back to the Bible verse. I think this is appropriate for tonight. I will personally be praying for any critic of David Wilcock. In my opinion, David Wilcock needs more critics, not less. And as far as, people claiming he's being trolled, it's not trolling if people are simply talking about the public claims that David Wilcock is making and expressing their belief that these are scams, that these are shady, that these are con jobs or whatever. People are free to say that based on these things. And, I guess I would strongly caution Mr. Wilcock to rethink that course, because if he goes down this road, what he's going to do is he is going to, first of all, he's going to alienate all of his followers, whatever followers he has left, because all this love and light doesn't work. Look how this worked for Cory Goode. Where's Cory Goode now? Oh, that's right. His company is insolvent, and he can't afford a lawyer to defend himself in lawsuits where he's being sued for copyright infringement. That's a problem, David Wilcock. And I think that Mr. Wilcock should think long and hard about what it's going to be like to sit there and be deposed for 8 hours, especially from people that have all this information that I've shared tonight. And what is it going to be like that somebody is going to get access to your private financial records for your company, your charity. You're going to have, he may have to show all the receipts from the claims that he made in those IRS forms. And isn't David Wilcock in enough legal trouble? He's going to be deposed in the Gaia versus Cory Goode case. His Statti Aerospace is being sued by creditors and sued by an investor. According to David Wilcock, he owes $1.5 million to the IRS. There is currently a $60,000 lien, IRS lien, for unpaid taxes on his property, which he and some people at an address once owned by Liz Laurie and Liz Laurie's businesses there, who moved David Wilcock's one and only main asset, the multi-million-dollar home that he owns, moved that into a holding corporation that then went belly up. All of these things are going to come out in any legal case. And then when it's public record, the IRS gets it. And those depositions, people could start asking him, how much money did you withhold from the IRS, David Wilcock? And then there is also the matter of some statements that David Wilcock made on the Edge of Wonder. People could subpoena YouTube and get those videos where David Wilcock appeared on Edge of Wonder and basically laid out his plan for income tax evasion. As best I recall, they took those videos down, but anybody sued by Wilcock could subpoena those from YouTube and get them. And then that becomes public record and the IRS gets that. And anybody sued by Mr. Wilcock could subpoena financial records, emails, request receipts for the things that he said he spent that charity's money on. I think that would be far more problematic for him than just letting people have their constitutional rights to free speech, letting people express their opinion about you as a public figure. But hey, people are going to do what they're going to do. And I think it's funny. Wilcock appears to be trying to flex like he's a big tough guy and he's going to start suing all these people. Well, how did that work out for Cory Goode? I think he should go think about that. Cory Goode's whole deal is he used to be in the big bucks, and all that big money is gone for Cory Goode, David Wilcock. I don't believe he'll ever. It's my here's another opinion. See, we're allowed to listen. And by the way, I'm only sharing. Oh, Patty Wilhelm, great. Criminals think others are less than them, so they feel justified in their crimes, allegedly. Edge of Wonder is the name. I was trying to remember that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in our poll. I'm going to have to check over there. He's so ill, he believes he's saving the world, says Jason Parker. Yeah. And I'm going to share another comment. You know, I just don't understand how David Wilcock thinks he's going to sue people for defamation for saying he's a con artist or a scammer when there's people all over the internet doing that. David Wilcock is lying about Shadows of Ezra knowing him. He's using bots on here. Click on any account with a default profile picture. It's a bot. He's lying about hover cars too. It's embarrassing. So, you know, people are free to express their opinion that you're a liar. And people are free to express their opinion that you are indeed, in their opinion, a con artist or a scammer, especially based on this. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was squeaking. Is it my chair? What is that? It's the chair. I apologize. Yeah. And I also apologize because I had a different mouse here that was silent because some of these audio files, like, oh my God, we could hear the mouse clicking like the world's going to end. I had to replace the mouse with just a regular mouse. I ordered a new silent mouse and we will be putting it in here as soon as I get it. Wilcock knows what he is doing. He has been doing it so long, he is quite comfortable with his scams. And again, these are people. Are you going to sue Davina? Oh, anybody that says that David Wilcock runs scams is getting sued by him. Anybody who calls him a con artist is getting sued. And by the way, it's very problematic. He's going to have to, in court, prove damages. He's going to have to say, this person said this about me, and therefore I lost this money. And then he's going to have to prove that he lost money. It's very, very difficult to do that in court. All right. Yeah, what would he sue for? Well, he's claiming that people are interfering with his business. Apparently, people saying he's a liar is interfering with his business. You know, or people showing the shady business practices, that's interfering with his business. Talking to board members, you know, people are allowed to ask questions to the board members of a public company, especially when they're soliciting investment money. But Wilcock claims that people are harassing the board members because they're asking questions. I mean, I don't know. So we're going to check out our poll here. Oh, wow. That's funny. 1 second. Let me get past this this ad here. I'm going to share the results of our poll for this evening. 1 second. All right. 1 second here. So I'll share the results of our poll. And by the way, again, David Wilcock, you know, and listen, I know that my audience may be skewed against you. Okay, we asked, is David Wilcock a con artist? And we asked this question publicly in our live chat, where in our live chat, we have a free speech zone. Let me take a moment to talk about that as well. David Wilcock blocks anybody that is critical of him. You're not allowed to ask critical questions in his live chat. He will block you. You're not allowed to ask critical questions on Twitter. He will block you. He blocks anybody that is critical of his claims. He lives in a fake echo chamber. We don't here. We rarely block anybody. We have a free speech zone. We have such a free speech zone that one of David Wilcock's unhinged lunatic followers, her name was Tarotina, came in our live chat and threatened my YouTube channel. Then she placed a false copyright strike against our channel here. We have since appealed it, and that strike has reverted to her, and she also got a community guideline strike for putting threats in writing. But anyway, we asked, is David Wilcock a con artist? We had 149 votes, 93% said yes, and 7% said no. So, David Wilcock, if you're upset that people have a perception that you're a con artist or a scammer, maybe you should change your business practices. Maybe you should release those 990 forms for the year 2019 and 2020, and also for the years 2022, 2023, and 2024. Because if you're going to collect charitable donations, by law, you have to show the public how much money you collected and what you spent the money on. You're in violation of IRS guidelines for that, near as I can tell, by refusing to release those forms and documents where we'd all get to see how much money you collected and what you spent it on. So what we've shown you tonight is a small sampling of the evidence that I have gathered over the past several years while covering David Wilcock and his various claims. I will, again, try to be fair here and give an olive branch to Mr. Wilcock. He's free to come here in person, appear by StreamYard on our live shows, and defend anything that I have presented this evening or any time that I've presented anything on him. And if I've gotten any fact wrong, I give my word as my bond. If I have gotten any fact wrong that David Wilcock considers wrong and damaging to his reputation or business, I will address that. And if I was wrong, I will certainly apologize, print a retraction, cut that out of the stream, whatever he thinks is a reasonable solution. But I don't think he's going to do that. And, you know, it's really just, I have terrible deja vu. Because I remember when Cory Goode started threatening to sue all of his critics. And everybody thought he wasn't going to do it. And people even said, go ahead, sue me, Cory Goode. I'm certainly not one of those people that would say that. I would certainly never say, go ahead, sue me. But I will say that I will aggressively defend my rights to free speech. I will aggressively defend my rights to freedom of expression. I will aggressively, legally, if necessary, defend my rights to comedic parody of public figures. And Mr. Wilcock is free to do what he will do. But I just strongly caution him. He has much more to lose than he has to gain. All he has to gain is, I suppose, revenge and making his online critics suffer for expressing their constitutional free speech of what they think of him. All he has to gain is revenge, I suppose, some strange, sickening form of revenge. And again, I ask you, would a man that's in contact with the Archangel Michael be seeking revenge and be seeking to make his critics suffer? Wouldn't he just forgive? Doesn't the law of one say you should just forgive? Doesn't the Bible say you should just forgive? Aren't you a spiritual guru and you're supposed to be so smart and enlightened? Why would you seek revenge? Do you know how many of your following will turn against you if you go down this dark and disastrous path? And again, look what this dark and disastrous path did to Cory Goode. I think that if Wilcock does this, what happened to Cory Goode will be nothing compared to what's going to happen to David Wilcock. The amount of information about David Wilcock and all of his business dealings that will become public should he choose to follow through on his threats to sue people is going to be tremendous. It's going to be tremendous. Yeah, and we want to thank Tommy T for a kind and generous $4.99. Says, keep up the great work you are doing, Stephen. Well, we thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And we appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us, Tommy T. Thanks for being a member also and helping us too.
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
All right, friends. I mentioned they used to make me memorize Bible verses. And I thought of a good one for tonight because I myself will be praying for anybody that is in David Wilcock's crosshairs that he plans to legally terrorize with lawfare for revenge. I thought of this, and it's from Ephesians 6:11-13. And that Bible verse says, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness in this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Put on the armor of God. If you're telling the truth, you should have nothing to fear. However, people can cost you years. You know, those poor people that Cory Goode sued. By the way, he lost every lawsuit. And this clown, David Wilcock, is going to be using the same lawyers that Cory Goode. Well, I don't know if he's using Llaneros, but Cory Goode's lawyers lost every case, essentially, to my understanding. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but they all got thrown out or settled out of court, right? She's a terrible lawyer. Is that the lawyer that you're going to use to sue your critics, David Wilcock? Good luck with that. So I don't know. I encourage everybody to pray for any victims. And that's what they will be. Anybody who David Wilcock is stupid enough to stomp all over the free speech of, to stomp all over the freedom of expression, he's essentially, you know, I hate to use this analogy, but digging his own grave. So get yourself a big shovel. And, you know, there is also a saying which I'd like to remind Mr. Wilcock of, and that is this. if you're going for revenge, you better dig 2 graves. You know, hatred, anger, it's the dark side. In fact, one of David Wilcock's own people commented, yeah, and let me share a couple of more clips before we bounce out of here from Macario. I apologize. I'm not going through his whole stream. You know why? Because he talks about pyramid code and other nonsense that's proven pseudoscience garbage. We are being initiated, according to David, but we have to be sued first. This is fair use. It's a transformative work. We're educating the public.
Now, that is a tongue twister. What do they mean by distortion leavings? It means initiation is a process whereby you have to come up against the things that you have created. People who have been trolling me, certain people who've been trolling me are soon going to be sued. And you'll probably know about it if you go looking for it, because they definitely deserve it. And that's going to be their initiation.
People deserve it. Look at him gleeful, smiling, as he is threatening to sue people. Is that the face of a spiritual guru, an enlightened master, threatening to hurt people through lawfare, attack people through frivolous lawsuits? But I want to hear exactly what he says again.
Initiation is a process whereby you have to come up against the things that you have created. People who have been trolling me, certain people who've been trolling me are soon going to be sued.
You come up against the things you have created. David Wilcock has created a legacy of decades of lying to people for money, in my opinion. Is he going to face a karmic moment? This is crazy. It's mind-boggling that this guy would be saying that the people criticizing him for all of the shady shit that we showed you tonight, the people criticizing him for that, they're the bad guys and they deserve to be sued.
And you'll probably know about it if you go looking for it, because they definitely deserve it. And that's going to be their initiation. They've done it for too long. We're simply not going to put up with it anymore. As a troll, let's say, you don't have to like the show.
Oh, and here's another point. So now David Wilcock is going to claim that what he does is art. Does that mean it's fictional? Because we can prove that it's fictional in many cases. We can prove that you use completely and totally fictional government insiders. They aren't government insiders. They're fakes. They're frauds. But you don't tell people is that art? He's going to claim that what he does is art. I'm here to tell you that using fake government whistleblowers and claiming that they're real is not now, nor will it ever be art.
But you can appreciate, or you should appreciate, that it is art. And art is not based on anything except the subjective experience of the viewer. And many people are subjectively enjoying these shows and getting great benefit out of them. So that's all that really matters.
What benefit do you get out of fake information, David Wilcock? What benefit do people get out of paying you for a course in anti-gravity and free energy, where you say, if you take my course, you'll be able to do it too, but then they're not able to do it? What benefit are they getting? How is this art? I just do not understand how he's going to claim that this is art now, which is, again, he's taking a page from the Cory Goode playbook, where I think he thinks he's going to absolve himself of all the false prophecies, all the fake government whistleblowers, all the shady business dealings, including his charity, all the fake whistleblowers, all of the fake information, by saying it's just art. No, you claimed this was real and important information that people had to give you $333 for it. You don't get to squirm out of this saying that what you do is art. I'm here to tell you that lying to people for money is not now, nor will it ever be art, in my opinion.
If one person thinks I'm a con artist or a fraud, that's up to them. That's their opinion, but it doesn't mean that it's true. Because actually with art, it has to do more with the majority. If the majority of people like the art, then it's considered to be good art. And obviously
if the majority of people like him lying to them, then it's considered good art. That's what he just said. He just said that out loud.
My art is considered good because many people are watching.
He just said his art is considered good. The only art that David Wilcock puts forth is the art of bullshit. Okay? I'm here to tell you. That's what it is. It's the art of bullshit. And bullshit is not art, last I checked. But, you know, what do I know? I got another clip to share with you. And again, Mr. Wilcock is melting down. The criticism is getting to him. I think the stress of all the financial, you know, if you run your life like I've shown you, he's been running his life for decades, always collecting money based on false promises, fake information, disinformation, fake whistleblowers, fake government insiders, fake scientists, fake people autopsying aliens. If you make your money from that for decades, eventually it's got to catch up to you. So I think what we're seeing is David Wilcock's karma. He talks a lot about karma. Does he not even realize that, like, he owes a karmic debt for selling people completely fake prophecies, completely fake Q-tard stuff? Cory Goode, the fake secret space insider, he sold that shit for years. Peterson, the fake scientist who never worked for Ronald Reagan and had a fake education and wasn't a scientist, he sold that in a lot of his books and live speaking fees and public appearances. Emery Smith, the fake, alien autopsier, that even Emery Smith says David Wilcock is full of shit. Does David Wilcock not owe a karmic debt for spending decades of his life selling completely and totally provably fake stories, claiming that they're real? Does he not understand that you can't do that without a karmic debt that must be paid?
I've certainly had many of them. I have been unrelentingly attacked by trolls online ever since I started doing this. They always say David has an ego, David is making money, David is a con artist. None of those things are true.
People are free to express their opinion. And based on your history, I don't think that David Wilcock has the right to blame anybody for the perception that he's a con artist or a scammer or a new age scammer or whatever, or a UFO scammer, secret space program scammer. Pick your scam. He's been involved in a lot of them. Hover car scammer, free energy scammer. He doesn't have the right to say people can't say that based on his very history of these things, in my opinion.
I mean, I am making some money, but certainly.
Oh, and by the way, on the money thing, I've talked to many people, and I don't think anybody has a problem with anybody making money. But when you're making money selling people completely and totally provably fake information from completely and totally provably fake sources that you claim otherwise about, people have the right. People have the right to be upset that you're taking money for fake information that you claim is real. People are allowed to be upset. People are allowed to call you a con artist. People are allowed to call you a scammer. You presented a fake scientist you claimed worked for Ronald Reagan. Then you helped him collect $55,000 from the UFO community, claiming he was under deep state attack by the Men in Black, and none of that was true. None of that was true, David Wilcock. Then you helped Emery Smith collect $50,000 from the UFO community, allegedly. Pete Peterson, allegedly you helped him. You publicized both of those fundraisers, which were completely and totally based on lies, provable lies. I just don't get how he could sit there with a straight face and be upset for people forming the opinion of him that they have formed. It's just... It's mind-blowing to me.
Certainly not very much. I have enough of an ego to protect myself, but I've learned through many painful experiences that, in fact, I need to have more of a sense of self, more of a sense of self-preservation.
He needs a bigger ego. David Wilcock also claimed that the sun responded to one of his live streams. I'll show you that in a moment. He needs more ego, he thinks. He needs a little more ego.
More of a sense of self-preservation. I allowed too many things to happen. I did not fight back. I did not expose what people were doing, the wrong that was being done.
If people are reporting facts about your business dealings, there's no wrong being done. Those are facts. And facts don't care about your feelings, David Wilcock. It's a fact that according to your own charity records, you collected almost $150,000 across 2 fiscal years, and that you spent almost, what was it, $6,500 or $7,000 on meals and entertainment from those charitable contributions. People are allowed to have their opinion of how unethical and immoral it is to take $6,500 or $7,000 worth of charitable contributions people gave you to do charity with. And how many times do you have to go out to dinner to spend $6,500 or $7,000 in 2 fiscal years? I don't know. My family and I, we're very cheap. My wife just commented, we spent $54, I think, on 2 pizzas and 24 wings. And maybe something else. Maybe there's French fries or something from a local pizza place for Father's Day. And we considered that a very extravagant expense. But of course, this was coming out of our own money, not out of charitable donations. 1 second. I just don't understand why he's so upset that people have this perception about him based on his history. I mean, who spends $6,500 or $7,000 on meals and entertainment out of money for him and his wife, out of money that people gave him to do charitable work? And what charitable work did he do? It's just, I can't believe this guy.
They think it's funny. It's not going to be funny. You're not going to be laughing. So we're going to take care of those things. And in the process, I'm going through a rebirth, which also includes having much better boundaries and not standing by and allowing this horrible negativity to go on without being checked. Thank you. Come to North Carolina. Lori donated $5. Sorry if I can't get all the things right. So again, this is art. You know, there's a lot of trolling activity.
Again, he's claiming that what he's doing is art. He's claiming that this is prophetic, secret, sacred knowledge that he was given by the Archangel Michael. And now he's claiming it's also art. So which is it? Is it really coming from the Archangel Michael, or is it art you created? He's trying to use the Cory Goode get out of my false claims free card here. I don't think that you can have it both ways, David Wilcock. It's either art or it's real accurate information coming from prophetic sources, including the Archangel Michael. You've claimed multiple times that this information you're selling people in your latest course is coming from the Archangel Michael. Now you're going to claim that's art?
Today, it's sort of like if you talk about it, it emboldens them. But the point is, art is subjective to the viewer. If you don't like the art and somebody else does, it doesn't mean the art is bad. It just means you don't like the art. You can see art that's actually really pretty terrible that still seems to get very valuable. I mean, the Jackson Pollock painting, I
Lying to people is not now, nor will it ever be art.
wouldn't want to have some.
He claimed the information he's presented is real, secret, sacred knowledge from archangels and divine sources.
Splatter thing on my wall. And yet these paintings are worth millions and millions of dollars, even though the guy himself was pretty crazy. And people have analyzed it and said, you know, it's kind of fractal, and he's got like a fractality to the.
Now he's an art critic
anyway,
as well.
There's some art out there that's pretty outrageous. And Andy Warhol was criticized because he was making paintings of Campbell's soup cans, and now those paintings are worth millions of dollars. Picasso was criticized because he was drawing people's faces looking all crazy. Oh my God, it's like a child drew this. Now those paintings are worth millions of dollars. So what I'm doing here is simply art. And if somebody likes the art, that's all it takes. If they like the art, if obviously you look at
If somebody likes my bullshit,
the comments, everybody's really happy. We have 2,600 people watching right now.
everybody's really happy. I'm going to show you some people that weren't happy.
And it's going to go up to probably closer to 5,000 before we're done.
It didn't go up to 5,000. All right. We have a little bit more to share. Here's David Wilcock talking about getting a $10 million loan by this Thursday, so he'll be able to sue his critics. But in the context that he's speaking about this, it is supposed to be a loan for Statti. So how is he taking a loan from that's being given to Statti? I'm a little confused by this. Is he claiming he's going to take money that is a loan being given to Statti and use that money to sue his critics? And listen to the Vic. I grew up on the mean streets of Philadelphia, and these interest rates only come from one kind of person, and it's usually somebody down in South Philly that you don't want to not pay back. I'll just leave it at that.
So we are in the process of actually getting a loan. It's pretty bad, though. I mean, we're going to have to get $10 million out of a total of 15, which means we're basically paying 50% more or less interest, if you want to look at it that way.
What real reputable bank or company charges 50% interest? Could they be forced into using some less than reputable loan source based on the fact that they are currently being sued by one of their earlier investors for over $1 million, for $1 million, who called it an investment scam and a Ponzi scheme? Oh boy.
But you know, in the end of the day, does it really matter if we end up launching our business? No. The point is, we've been with many, many lenders. There's been a lot of DS opposition.
Deep State is opposing his Statti hover car and free energy plans.
This is why certain unscrupulous individuals try to come after us online. So,
okay, so he's going to pay 50% interest on a business loan. I don't know. I worked in corporate America in finance. I worked in corporate credit and finance. I've never heard of a business loan with that kind of an interest rate. But what do I know? You know, I mean, is this is just crazy, just crazy. And of course, I want to share this. Mr. Wilcock claims, one of his other ridiculous claims, I did a show and the sun itself responded. David Wilcock claims that he did a show about solar flares, and then remember that recent solar activity that we had? That was because of his show. David Wilcock is claiming on public live streams that the sun itself is responding to his live streams. No ego there, right? No ego there. Just absolutely crazy. And John Christian Spadavaccia is sharing some of the comments that David Wilcock's own followers are leaving for him. Here we have one. One of his followers says, Master Yoda says, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Love everybody and forgive everybody. You don't want to take that pain and suffering into the spirit world with you. So David Wilcock's own followers are telling him that he can't do this. He cannot do this because it's not of service to others. It's of service to self, right? Gotta love it. Gotta love it. And that's not all. There was plenty of this stuff is being shown. This is his own followers. So I think he really needs to rethink this. You are losing your voice because your body doesn't want you to keep talking about trolls. You even said Edgar Casey started getting negative entities because he was mad at his trolls. So stop acknowledging them. They keep attacking you because you keep acknowledging them. Duh. Wake up, David. You are a wonderful, smart guy, but you can't seem to get this. Why? These are his own fans. You overthinking and overfeeling prima donna you. Only you bothers you, if nothing. No one is actually attacking you. Laugh out loud. Do more karate and chill and chi. Laugh out loud. This is his own followers are turning against him based on his latest statements that he's going to start suing his detractors online. I just can't believe it. And I guess we'll leave you with somebody expressing their constitutional rights to free speech and freedom of expression and their freedom to express their opinion on David Wilcock, and that would be one Osiris Christensen. David Wilcock, he says, a note for David Wilcock devotees. David Wilcock is a megalomaniac, a verified fraudster, and a total disgrace to truth and spiritual evolution. And by the way, I'm just reporting on what people are saying on Twitter. So don't you dare say you're going to, take action against me. I'm a reporter. We're reporting what people are talking about in relation to David Wilcock's recent claims. And this is a person on Twitter. David Wilcock is a megalomaniac, a verified fraudster, and a total disgrace to truth and spiritual evolution. I understand you want companionship and someone to bestow upon you a sense of hope in times that are bleak. People desire a mentor to ignite their passion and reveal new horizons. But regretfully, David Wilcock is not the person you should be seeking for any guidance or inspiration. David Wilcock is inherently toxic, and David Wilcock is an anathema to your personal growth and well-being. David Wilcock's mental state is characterized by delusional fantasies of power, omnipotence, and extremely exaggerated sense of his own significance and authority. David Wilcock's actions are motivated by a selfish pursuit of fame and financial benefit, with no regard for the consequences on others. Do not be duped. And again, people are free to express their opinion. And a lot of people have the opinion that Mr. Wilcock is not a spiritual guru, not in communication with angels, that all of his so-called government whistleblowers were fake. He had a fake scientist. He had the fake secret space clown, Cory Goode. This is just, I can't believe that this guy is running around threatening to sue people on the internet for their opinion, for their rights to free speech. There is at least some precedence in which if a public figure sues a person for expressing their free speech, that person would be free to sue them for violation of their constitutional rights. This just opens a whole can of worms. And we're going to close tonight with another piece from John Christian Spatavaccia, more false claims coming out of Statti Aerospace. A little birdie within Statti told me that they have allegedly been working with Canadian nuclear laboratories on a, quote, nuclear battery. This response from the U.S. NRC indicates that Statti is not in the nuclear industry. So apparently or allegedly, people within Statti are claiming that they're developing nuclear batteries. John Christian Spatavaccia did some inquiries, because if you develop nuclear anything in the United States, you need appropriate licensing and permission and all that stuff. And here is a letter. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to, one second. I'm going to have to show that one another way. You'll have to excuse me. I am visually impaired. And by the way, I have another point to make. Don't let me forget. I don't want to forget the next point that I want to make before we end tonight's broadcast. So this is from, I shared it the wrong way again. Hold on one second. I have to share it from Image Viewer. Here we go. So this is the confirmation that we are unable to process your request because you have failed to provide sufficient information for us to determine what records to search. But later they go on to say, a search of Atoms, which is the NRC's official record repository, did not locate any records bearing that name, Statti Aerospace, nor does the materials licensing tracking system or web-based licensing database show materials licensee with that name. But you said in the previous paragraph that you didn't know what to search for. So John Spatavaccia filed FOIA requests with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And just to be clear, if Mr. Wilcock and his shady aerospace company were actually developing a nuclear battery, there would have to be records that are FOIAble on file with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They regulate any nuclear materials, nuclear projects. So it turns out that I suppose Statti Aerospace is making more false claims while they are soliciting public investors and trying to get loans. This is problematic, but this is just another in a long line of false claims. Remember, they falsely claimed that they had wind tunnel contracts. That turned out to be a lie. They falsely claimed they were developing laser weapons for the United States military. That turned out to be a lie. This is extremely problematic, but it's just another in a long line of proofs that show you that you can't trust anything being said. Yeah, so I think, let me make sure. I think there might be something else that I intended to share. No, I think we've covered it. I think we have done our due diligence, and we appreciate those of you. Pardon me. I'm still on meds for strep throat, and I do appreciate all the messages people sent me. If you have strep throat, Stephen, then you should stop smoking right away. I know, you're right. Still trying to quit or switch to vaping. Yeah. So we've gone over just some of the shady business dealings of David Wilcock over the years. And I, for one, am still puzzled that he thinks that he's going to sue somebody for, I don't know, defamation or slander or interfering with his business. If it's interfering with your business that people talk about your long and well-documented history of selling fake shit to stupid people, then maybe you should modify your business and stop selling fake information for $333. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. And finally, just a note about all the love and light horse shit that David Wilcock shovels. Should he involve me in any lawsuit, I will be sure to wage a public relations campaign publicizing the fact that a so-called spiritual guru is suing a disabled man who is the full-time caretaker of a nonverbal autistic child. How love and light would that be? And by the way, I'm not looking for sympathy, but come on, David. Think about your followers. How are they going to feel when they know that you're suing a man who's disabled himself, who is also the full-time caretaker of an extremely disabled 12-year-old boy? That is my oldest son. Would that go over well with your following of love and light and hippy-dippy shit that you're suing somebody for what? For reporting accurately? For sharing public documents? That's all we've done here. For expressing my opinion? Good luck. Good luck. So we'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. Wilcock might get countersued. Yes, Admiral Rascals, that is another. And then he'll have to give more depositions and he'll have to release more documents. And what he's failing to realize is that everything that goes into a court case becomes public record. So emails, text messages, financial documents, phone records, business receipts, all of that may become public record. I think he may be all talk. I mean, I just am at a loss. Patty says, feel better. I will. Admiral Rascals says, Wilcock spreads new age BS. William Harding is here and says, love the show every time, Stephen. I actually saw something in the sky 10 years ago. It's sad that people who are seeking the truth find commonality with these scammers who take advantage of our curiosity. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, Arthur Crow is here. Good point. Says David will sue the Archangel Michael. Yes. Future Class says his magic is wearing off. Yeah. Yeah. David, you have hurt many with your deception. That is not love, says Patty Wilhelm. Yeah. Oh. Admiral Rascal says David Wilcock is going to be with Big Bubba in Leavenworth. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. If he opens this litigation up and all these things become public record, and by the way, if he starts suing people, maybe people will start getting incredibly aggressive and start filing criminal complaints. Or the authorities in the jurisdictions in which all these shady things took place, if the records become public, they have a responsibility to prosecute, maybe. So who knows what kind of, and this is, by the way, this is just my speculation. I'm entitled to it, but who knows what kind of can of worms he may be opening with this. Megafan is here. Thanks for being a member, and says, beware false prophets with an F. Yes. Megafan also says false prophet criminal. Are you going to sue him? David Wilcock, you better start taking notes. You got to sue all these people who are expressing their opinion. People are allowed to express their opinion based on your history. And I don't know how he's going to pull this out, but bear in mind, especially those of you not in the United States, that the United States is crazy. Our legal system is, you could sue anybody for anything. Remember that girl sued McDonald's for like millions of dollars because her coffee was too hot, and won. So he's free to sue anybody he wants for any reason he wants. But I think that the detriment to him, especially, he's already on the downslope as far as he's losing followers. He's not getting any. He's not getting new. Let's check his Social Blade and see how many new subscribers is David Wilcock getting. I always forget you have to add 333 to David Wilcock when you look up his Social Blade. Let me try Divine Cosmos. I don't see it. No, that's not the right channel. Huh, that's weird. You can't look up David Wilcock on Social Blade? Could before. That's not him either. Anybody know? I think it's David Wilcock 333. Yeah, I got it. Sorry. So we're going to look at his monthly statistics. And remember that a YouTube channel that is, if you're not getting new subscribers, you're dead. You're dead in the water. So let's take a look. How many new subscribers has David Wilcock gotten in the past 30 days? Oh, look at that. Not one. He hasn't gotten new subscribers. But by the way, there's been various claims by various people over the years that David Wilcock bought a lot of his subscribers. We also know for a verifiable fact that David Wilcock was using bots in his live chat. People are accusing him of using bots to respond to his Twitter posts. For those unaware, you can pay for these things, right? And the views are not terrible. I mean, he's certainly doing more views than us. But how many of those views are real and organic views? Because it doesn't make any sense that he's getting that many views and getting 0 subscribers, which would lead many to possibly speculate that he's buying views. And anybody that buys views, it does nothing for you. It pads your ego. You could say, hey, I got 48,000 views today. But it doesn't really do anything for you as far as engagement or, bots aren't going to buy the product that he's selling. But anyway, it's interesting to see that he hasn't gotten one new subscriber. And we'll see the future projections. Oh, it says he's going to hit 500,000 subscribers in 2 months, but yet he hasn't gotten any subscribers. Yeah, I don't understand. But this is a projection. Projections can be wrong. All right, we've done our due diligence. False prophet criminal. You better be careful, Megafan. You're going to get sued by David Wilcock for being a troll. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, my advice to David Wilcock would be, If you don't want people calling you a con artist or a scammer for being associated with the Pete Peterson GoFundMe scam thing, then give $55,000 of your own money to charity and say, see, I didn't have anything to do with that. Give $50,000 for the Emery Smith PayPal donation thing to charity. Give every dime of the charitable donations that you collected for your so-called spiritual foundation, which I can't find any charitable work you did. Give all that money, the $150,000, and also whatever you collected in 2019 and whatever you collected in 2020, whatever you collected in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Give all that money to charity. And then people won't be able to say that about you, David. But given that, according to you, you're already in $1.5 million in debt to the IRS, I don't see him doing that, right? I just don't see him doing that. Yeah, so, it is what it is. Mr. Wilcock, I think he's melting down because the pressure is getting to him. You can't lie to people for decades without eventually catching up to him. David Wilcock is suing Stephen over the location of the box of dildos. Tell him where they are and he'll drop the suit. Yeah. In a courtroom, many facts about him could be brought to light that he would rather not be revealed. Yeah. I'd subpoena his wife and make his wife testify about what happened to all the charity money. She's listed as an officer of that charity. CoffeeZilla is probably only holding off to let you get him. Yeah, I don't know. Trolls unite. Sue the internet. Brilliant. Patty says, David, as you sow, and so shall you reap. It's coming for you. Algaray is here and says, with his current tax trouble and Stavati's funding problems, I don't think starting frivolous lawsuits will help his cause. No, it's extremely unadvisable if you ask me. Yes, and Michael Orleans correctly pointing out $333 times 2 is 666, the mark of the beast. Wilcock's next movie is suing Ra and the Squirrels. Yes, Operation Shutdown is here. He would be smart to drop all his lawsuit talk for his own sake. I agree. The art in my head is saying Wilcock is a grade A wackadoo. The art in my head is saying that he's a wackadoo. And by the way, an argument could be made that we're creating art here, right? Based on the fact that we do comedic parodies, that we do music videos about David Wilcock. And by the way, I'm going to play us out with Simon Fly's excellent hit, I'm David Wilcock. So we can make further arguments that what we do here really is make art, and what David Wilcock does is sell bullshit. Selling bullshit is not making art, David Wilcock. But I will give you a lesson. And by the way, I want to close this evening with another offer. If I've stated anything that was factually inaccurate, David Wilcock is free to email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com and request a retraction or apology or cutting that out of my show, and I'll do so. Then I can save him all that lawyer money. He won't have to, take me to court if I said something that was inaccurate. And by the way, I'm a Christian, so if I did report something that was inaccurate or lie about David Wilcock, I would certainly apologize and seek forgiveness and, confess my sins. But I think that we do a fairly accurate and reasonable job. We show you the evidence. And by the way, in the description of this video or podcast, we've shared a Google Drive folder, which I will be putting all of the evidence. I have to get with John Christian Spadavaccia and get all of the lawsuit paperwork from Stavati, and we're going to put that in there too. So if David Wilcock sues anybody that might have said that he's a con artist or a scammer or whatever on the internet, and he sues you, you'll have all the evidence that you could use as a defense and say, this is all the evidence that I based my opinion on, and it's just my opinion. And good luck, David Wilcock. Good luck recovering damages. And like I said, in my case, it's so stupid. I have a company that's worth nothing, and every one of my shows is clearly marked that my show is produced by my company. He can't sue me personally or even come after my personal assets. He has to go after my company and my company's assets. And it'd be to be just brutally honest, my company isn't worth very much. So if there was ever a serious lawsuit, it would basically just bankrupt my company, and I would just let it go bankrupt. Good luck collecting any damages from a bankrupt company. It would be a completely and totally fruitless endeavor. But that's what stupid people like Mr. Goode or Mr. Wilcock don't realize, that sometimes people have legal protections in place, right? Yeah, it is what it is, friends. So we've done our due diligence. I apologize for the differing format tonight. If you came here wanting to just hear me yell at David Wilcock's live stream for 3 hours, I apologize. Troll says, I'll tell you about it. Been busy. 40 newborn quails. Mega fan. Surviving Wilcock. Yeah, we could start our own reality series like Cory Goode claims he was going to do. Yes. Pete Berry. Thanks for being a member. An excellent observation. He says, we are not trolls. We are critics. Yeah. Could you imagine if like other public figures that actually were famous just started suing people that said nasty stuff about them on the internet? Like what if Charlie Sheen just started suing everybody? Or I don't know. What if Sylvester Stallone sued everybody that said that they hated the Rocky movies? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. You're a public figure. And by the way, people have spread absolutely false and malicious rumors about me. People have completely and totally lied and said things about me like I was a convicted felon that were completely and totally not true. I'm not a convicted felon. I've never been convicted of a crime. I didn't sue anybody because I realize I'm a public figure and people are going to say shit, and you're just going to have to deal with it. It comes with being a public figure. David Wilcock, Garagi, I don't believe so. He has to. The show here is produced by a company. There's a legal protection in place to prevent that. It would get dismissed immediately because the show is not produced by me personally. It's produced by my company. Got to take care of those babies. Yeah. So we've done our due diligence. We're going to bounce on out of here to the tune of I'm David Wilcock, which is an excellent music video. It is art that was created by our friend Simon Fly. Please follow him on YouTube, Simon Fly. I believe the link to his YouTube channel is in the description of the video. And this is fair use. It's a transformative work, and it's a comedic parody. Yeah. So I don't know. That's all I got for you, friends. I'm still just continually dumbfounded. This guy thinks he's going to start suing what he calls trolls, what Pete Berry appropriately pointed out are not trolls. They're critics that don't like what David Wilcock does and what he stands for and what he sells people. People are entitled to say, I don't like you lying to people for $333. I don't like you selling completely and totally fake whistleblowers and fake scientists, pretending they're real scientists for money. I don't like that. Or I think you're a scammer. Or I think you're a con artist because you've done that. Or I think you're a scammer or a con artist because you've been involved in these GoFundMe fundraisers that were completely and totally based on lies. Or these PayPal donation things that were completely and totally based on lies and fake stories. People are allowed to have their opinion, Mr. Wilcock. So buckle up. You got to toughen up. You need a thicker skin to deal with this. But Mr. Wilcock, everything is some big dramatic thing. He's such a melodramatic guy. But we're going to leave it here. I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you'll be here with me. But for now, that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambian. Good night, and God bless all of you.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Very good. 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 I'm David Wilcock. I'm David Wilcock. I'm David Wilcock. Cock. Wow. 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 Extraterrestrials, angels, Wilcock. Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Wilcock. 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 Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Extraterrestrials, angels, angels. Woo! 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 I'm David Wilcock.